Hey everyone, this is Alan Schimmel and welcome to another episode of TechStrong TV. Today is Tuesday, October 13th. It's episode 102 and we're glad you can make it. Seem to have a little insect problem here in the studio today. Problem with flies. Anyway, we've got some great interviews for you today. Our first one is going to be with Faisal Lakhani. Faisal is an old friend of mine back from his Reconics McAfee days. He's now the CEO of APISec.ai, and we're going to talk about the growing importance and emphasis on security of API, or API security. After that, I'm really happy. We're going to break some news. My friend Droidio, the CEO of Armory, and is joining us along with Margaret Francis, who's now the COO of Armory and board member. Margaret was over at Salesforce running a product at Heroku, SVP for Heroku at Salesforce. She's now part of the Armory team. And the real big news is they just announced a $40 million Series C. And Droidio and Margaret are going to tell us exciting news beyond the raise even, about Armory and what we have in store here. After that, I'm really happy we're going to have, I believe it's episode 4 of DevOps Unbound. This is not our roundtable, it's the pre-recorded panel. We've got a great panel today. We've got Gerda Shiganaku, Rosalind Radcliffe of IBM, Sam Knudsen of CompuWare, and Mitch Ashley joining me. And we are going to talk about app modernization, DevOps, and the mainframe. So great DevOps Unbound today. Stay tuned for that. And then after DevOps Unbound, we're going to head on over to Charlene O'Hanlon, our managing editor. And Charlene is going to give us the news around the media ops neighborhood sites today, as well as a great interview Charlene has with Scott Leatherman of Vertana about Vertana's recent Global 2000 analysis, showing 66% of enterprises are overspending for cloud in this rush to cloud digital transformation. Some people consider that part of FinOps and all of that, but good interview with Charlene. And then Charlene is also going to have a great preview of the rest of this week's webinars out on Media Ops this week with some good stuff there. I'll be back after Charlene to introduce the Analyst Corner, where we have Mitchell Ashley, and Mitchell will have some great analysis, commentary, and video today, as usual, including an interview with Observe CEO Jeremy Burton. So that should be a good one. Stay tuned for. I'll be back after that to introduce Mike Vizard. Mike's channel roundup guest today is Samantha Madrid, Vice President of Security Business Unit and Strategy for Juniper Networks, and that should be a good one. And then I'll be back to wrap things up. So it's going to be a busy day as usual here on TechStrong TV. We're going to take a quick break for commercial, and we'll be right back with our first guest.
Control to Major Tom. Turn up your CI/CD pipe and put your observability on. Ground control to Major Tom.
10, 9.
Commencing countdown, engines on.
6, 5.
Check ignition and make God's love be with you.
Flies are just all over the place. Anyway, okay, for our first guest today, I'm really happy to be joined by my friend Faisal Lakhani. I first met Faisal probably 10 years ago or more when he was at Reconyx, which was purchased by McAfee. Reconyx was a leader in their space, DLP then, and it became a big part of the McAfee security portfolio. Faisal, of course, has left there a while ago. He's now CEO at APISec, APISec.ai, and he's going to join us, tell us all about APISec's mission. You know, the whole area around API security has gotten really important. Faisal's going to tell us why, as well as what APISec's all about. So here's Faisal Lakhani, CEO at APISec.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel. Welcome to another session here on TechStrong TV. We're really happy to introduce you to a new company on TechStrong TV today. And to do that, let me introduce you to our guest. It's Faisal Lakhani. Faisal is the CEO of a company called APISec.ai, and that's obviously the web address too, APISec.ai. Hey Faisal, welcome to TechStrong TV.
Hey Alan, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on, and we appreciate what you're doing. API security is you know, look, you want to say we're nerdy, but API security is something that we're into around here, right? Our audience is into it. We cover the area a lot, so it's something that we like to explore. Before we jump into the company, though, Faisal, let's take a look, give our audience a flavor of your background and how you came to be CEO here.
Yeah, so, I've been in the security marketplace for over 15 years. Started in the area of LAN security way back in 2000s. Competed with a company that was going to take on the secure switching of Cisco. Went on from there into the data loss prevention marketplace when people didn't even know what DLP was. Yep. And we sold that to McAfee. Company was Reconyx. We sold that to McAfee.
Sure.
And, I ended up taking on that business and growing it from a very small couple $1 million to a very large, close to $150 million run rate. And then from there, I went on to another company in the security communication analytics business called SS8. Grew that company. We just recently got a private equity roll-up out of that. And then for the last couple of years, I was in the machine learning AI business with a company called Guavas, which was purchased by a large French company called Thales. And that was also a fun ride. Really the nexus was taking huge volumes of data and be able to extract through machines insights that optimize and the way that things are done. So it's been a fun ride. I joined APISec in February. And it was it's a fascinating area. And I've teamed up with Intisar Mohammed, who's our co-founder. And for me, APISec was this really interesting play that really breaks the paradigm, Alan, of security. Right. So having been in security as long as I have, we've always come at things and said, okay, you know what? The baby is fragile. Oh my God. People are going to do dumb things. Let's like put security around it and we'll protect people from themselves. Right. And I think that, in the old days, that was a good idea. As execution of applications has moved from desktops and data centers to cloud native containers, and all of that, we're now seeing that the world of security has moved up the stack. And no longer can we just say, well, let's just put a security Band-Aid on it or, create that security moat. Rather, security has to be thought of as you're building those things. And that's the thing that attracted me to APISec was a paradigm shift that combined DevOps with security requirements associated with how do I protect data in a way that, had a very, very easy to deploy and easy to recognize value solution. And that's what drove me to partner with Intisar here at APISec.
So I got to tell you, It's the same thing that got me into DevOps, right? 9 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, I'm at a dinner with Gene Kim, and he tells me about this book he's been working on, right? And he gives me kind of the outline and the whole story and everything. And I said, this is great for security. We're going to move security further into it, get more mind share, move it up the stack, make it more, less of an add-on, bolt-on. And that was how I got into DevOps, and here I am now. But 6 degrees of separation in the world of security, Faisal. You and I ran into each other, cross paths when you were at Reconics, I believe, right? Maybe
That's
before
correct.
the McAfee, or maybe right around when McAfee acquired it. I absolutely remember. So yeah, we both have that heritage in our background. The other thing is just briefly commenting. Yes, our generation, and granted, when we were coming into security, there weren't schools offering bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and stuff. Most of us were self-taught, or had some computer background, but security. But we were always, the mantra back then that the weakest link was the person at the keyboard. Right? That was the weak link in security. And so we had to do everything we could to idiot-proof it, for lack of a better word, right? Take that person out of the equation. And now we deal at a different level, as you mentioned. And this whole API and the way machines talk to machines and data moves back and forth without, in an automated fashion, without people.
So
It's a
Alan,
game changer.
that's the premise, right? Like you look today and say, we've taken care of all the I shouldn't say all, we understand the things that are happening to users and we've gotten smart about it. But it's the explosion of APIs over the last 10, 12 years that has really driven this machine-to-machine layer, right? And
Yep.
it's fascinating to me as I think about this problem is I go, okay, so what's an API? Like an API is like a command line that exposes you to the guts of everything that your application does. Okay, wait a minute. So in the old days, we had these great monolithic applications, and the only way to get to them was a web front end, right? You had to go to a browser, and you had a human, and you worried about what that human did. Well, today, we're headless. I mean, take the largest companies in Silicon Valley today, they're headless operations, Twilio, you name them. And basically their value is in that creation of data. So now you're going, okay, wait, these headless operations are happening and the API is nothing more than a CLI into the base operating system. Uh-oh. Now what? And now the problem is, Alan, I'd say because we're old, that the way you handle security is you said, okay, there's only one path to take. Like if you want to get to the app, you get through it through the web app. And the web app is controlled by HTML standards. And as a result, we're going to secure those standards. And if anything happens outside, boom, security police, we're going to jump all over you. Well, an API being a command line, there are no rules. Right there, it's almost like the Wild West. So let's think about this. It's like the business application has business rules. What can Alan do? What can Faisal do? Those rules are all unique. You can't just program them. The security can't just come and say, "Oh, I figured it out." No. You can't watch an application API and figure it out. It's impossible. So what you look at and you're like, but they're unique. So how do you secure them? And that's the fascinating thing that we have solved at AppySec, which is not how do you make your developers better, more secure coders, because there's a bunch of products out there in the AppSec business, Alan, that's like DevOps. Oh my God, I'm going to teach your developers how to code securely. Well, yeah, that's cool. But the flaws are in business logic vulnerabilities in the API. And you can develop your coders to be really good, secure coders, but unless they look for those security vulnerabilities in the business logic, good luck. And that's the thesis.
And they don't look for them. By default, they don't. So as much as things change, Faisal, some stuff stays the same. So what a beautiful thing APIs are, right? Think about how empowering it is that we have all of that every function, application, there's APIs for everything today, it seems, right? And I always tell like non-sophisticated, think of an API as a plug in the wall, and as long as you've got, a socket in the wall, as long as you've got a plug that's, 110, 220, it fits in that socket, you're good. Information flows like electricity, right? And so we made APIs everywhere. And then sometime after that, someone said, wait a second, this could be a potential security problem. Because, we've taken the dumb human out of the equation, perhaps, right? The weakest link in the chain. But that information is now flowing. These APIs are doing their thing. There's opportunity for bad there. Things can go off the rails, if you will, and then now comes security saying, yes, you're right. We need to do something about that. So a little bit late to the party, but better to be late than not at all. So talk to us about how API Sec is solving these issues now.
Yeah, so before I get to API Sec, let's pause on that point, right? So let's look at some recent breaches, right? Like API breaches. So I'm going to give you this easiest one, Venmo. Just do Venmo API breach. And you're like, okay, what was it? Would you believe it was a feature? And so all of us use Venmo, right? And inside the Venmo API, it had a feature designed in, released by purpose that said, send me all transactions. Okay, you click that feature, and all of a sudden, every transaction that occurred on the Venmo network was duplicated to you. Yeah. So, and why did they do it? Because Venmo is a social payment platform, right? So they're like, yeah, it's great, right? Well, guess what happened? Smart people said, oh, imagine what we could learn about Alan if we know everywhere he's spending and where he's spending and what he's spending. And imagine what cool social engineering things that we could do. And some researcher went running over to Venmo and said, hey, you know what? This API could be bad. And they're like, no, it's fine. It's social. What's the problem? And so if you pause for a second, so that's the class of problems, Alan. Let me give you another one. Everybody talks about Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, and you go, oh, yeah, you remember that? And those Cambridge Analytica guys, they were awful, right? Like,
evil.
Well, they were evil, but wait a minute. Do you know how they did it? They, inside the Facebook API, there's a feature in the marketing API that says when you create an ad, there's a feature called View As, right? And so you create the ad in Facebook, in the Facebook ad platform, and you say View As, and I could put in Alan Schimmel, and it would show me Alan Schimmel's Facebook page as Alan would see it. You're like, ooh, okay. I can see why it's a feature, right? I mean, the advertisers, but imagine what you could scrape with that. Like, but it was a design feature. So when you think about those, what I just described are business logic flaws inherent in the app that expose themselves through nefarious people who want to do something bad with that. Okay, so that business logic access control authorization problem, that's what AppSec does, right? So now you say, well, Faisal, how's it do it? I mean, yeah, I got it. Well, how's it do it? And I'm like, okay, so simple. We do four things. First thing we do is we learn the API. We pull it from either an API gateway or some sort of, you can feed us the docs of the API so we can connect to MuleSoft, Apigee, AWS, Kong, you name it. We pull the definition. Once we pull the definition, we then take that, combine that with our years of analyzing security breaches and APIs. And what we do is we combine those together to generate thousands of API attacks, thousands, right? In some cases, tens of thousands of API attacks. And so now what we've done is we've taken the API, combined it with this knowledge, and now we can go out and uncover vulnerabilities. So second thing we do is create these attacks. Third thing is we exercise the API, either in dev, Alan, or in staging, pre-prod, or in prod, right? So it's a true DevSecOps solution.
Yep.
Right? Which so once, because we don't need to see real traffic. Those vulnerabilities exist in dev, they exist in staging, they exist in prod. You want to catch them early. And so once we do that, we then uncover real vulnerabilities and create issues in their Jira or whatever trouble ticketing system that they have. We are integrated into people's dev pipelines, Jenkins, TeamCity, AWS, you name it. And basically we become the security layer that comes to your devs for API security, right? So think about this. Your devs don't think about security when they code. Which dev, Alan, which dev sits here and says, I am under a gun to build this feature. Oh, let me build it securely. They don't think like that. They go, oh, I'm under the gun. I got to get it done. So imagine if you had a system that backed into that said, you code as fast as you want, you deliver the feature, and we'll uncover automatically every vulnerability, and you decide, based on our ranking of which ones are critical, the ones that you must solve. That's AppSec in a nutshell. Does that make sense, Alan?
Makes sense to me. So how do you sell that? How do you price this? How do you sell it? Like, is it how many devs are using it? How much code you look at? I mean, what do you do? How do you do that?
So what's fascinating we found as we went to market was we found, well, how are people, what's driving them towards API security? And we found if you're a fintech or you're a health tech or you're a SaaS, what's driving you is somebody saying, I don't want to give you my data unless I know that API is secure. So how are they doing that today? They're paying pen test firms to go test their API. Okay, but wow, wait, we said APIs are business logic and complicated. So how do they do that? Well, they pay them and they sample the API and they try to uncover vulnerabilities. But they're spending real money, Alan. They're spending tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, depending on the complexity of the API, to test it. And so we come along and we're like, hey, we can look at an API continuously, all the time. We'll auto-generate for you a pen test report, and we'll do it at 1/10 the price of your external pen testing. Interested? Right?
Yeah,
and
no, that's a great model.
So then you go, well, okay, so I get it. So who's your buyer? And I'm like, well, the buyer tends to be the security team. Why? Because they're the ones who are mandated by the organization to say, hey, make sure the API is secure because these customers won't buy unless they have proof, or they won't use unless there's some proof that the API is secure, right? So that's who we initially sell into. But I'll tell you what happens 100% of the time when we win a deal. And we win through the security team, and the security team uses us and they uncover issues and they log issues in the engineering system, and almost always, not almost always, always, within 2 to 4 months, we get a call from the dev team that says, hey, you have this thing running with our security team. We'd like to get it running in the pipeline. We don't want those guys.
I want to move it left.
I want to move it left, right? Because I want to catch it there. I don't want it being caught in pre-prod or staging. I want to get, or sandbox, I want to get it caught early and I want it parked there. So our customers start in security with an ROI-based sale, and then they go left and they make it, the ROI increases because they're catching it faster, they're increasing velocity, and then we go that way. So that's kind of the motion, Alan.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, Faisal. So there's a lot of action now in DevOps and what we call GitOps, right? So that these kinds of things are actually being done while the code is still in Git, before it even really gets into that CI/CD pipeline, if you will, like before Jenkins, before all that. Have you guys started working on or thinking about, maybe an integration into a GitHub or a GitLab or something like that? So even moving further left, if you will.
Yep. We've thought about it. In fact, our customers have done it. So we have
Oh, okay.
a couple of customers who have actually done gated check-in based on AppSec. So basically what they do is before the dev can upload the code into the mainline repo, they run AppSec against it to uncover issues, make sure the API hasn't degraded in security, right? And they've got, obviously filters to decide when they're going to allow or not, and then it goes into the repo. And so this is again another move left, and the big value here is that the layer that we operate at with business logic, that's something that humans do today. The only way to catch this stuff is the dev is catching it, the automation engineers writing it, but both of those cases says dev's got to become a security expert and automation guys got to be keeping up with the speed of dev. Except AppSec does both of those and does them instantly. So it's this continuous compliance solution to your APIs.
Love it. Faisal, I love it, man. Hey, stay in touch with us. Keep us posted as you guys continue, going forward here. Look, this is as I said at the outset, this is a really interesting, kind of important piece of the whole DevOps, pipeline stuff, and important. Not to mention how many APIs are already out there. Talk about a target-rich environment. But best of luck, Faisal.
Thanks for having us, Alan. I really appreciate it. It was fun to have this talk.
Absolutely. Faisal Lakhani. You know what? You meet all kinds of people in the cybersecurity world. It had to be, 10 years ago, maybe more, 12, 15. But anyway, man, hey, good luck. Keep us posted. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We're going to be right back in just a moment.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more.
Joined by my friend Droidio, CEO of Armory Networks, as well as new COO at Armory, Margaret Francis. They're going to tell us all about Armory's recently announced, or just announced, breaking it here on the show, Series C, $40 million, with B Ventures as the lead, as well as a great new SaaS spinnaker from Armory, as well as more plans around Armory. So here's Droidio and Margaret Francis of Armory.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel, and welcome to another segment on TechStrong TV. My guest for this segment is my friend Droidio. Droidio is the co-founder, CEO at Armory. Droidio, welcome. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I love chatting with you, Alan.
It's always, I enjoy chatting with you. Just for background, I first met Droidio in Iceland, of all places, right? At a Insight Ignite conference from my friend Emmett Keefe. Puts those on, and they're great. And I had a chance to spend a weekend bonding with Droidio as we explored ice caves, four-wheel driving over the tundra, and actually meeting the First Lady of Iceland at a talk and everything. So it was good times. But of course, that's not all you do, Droidio. You are the CEO of Armory, the people who are bringing Spinnaker to the enterprise in as a commercial entity. Let's start with some background. Of course, everyone calls you Droidio, but your real name is Daniel.
That's right. My full name is Daniel Ruben Odio. I go by Droidio. There's a backstory to it that we can chat about some other time. But yeah, I'm the CEO of Armory. And we're really happy to announce a Series C. We're funding a Series C with B Capital, and Rashmi Gopinath is going to be joining our board along with Margaret Francis, who's our new Chief Operating Officer, who just joined from Salesforce.
That's fantastic. So Margaret may or may not be dropping in on us. If she does, great. But if not, Jordio, a little background on Margaret.
Yeah, so Margaret was previously the SVP product and GM of Heroku at Salesforce. And as we scale Armory, it's just such a pleasure to bring people like Margaret into the company. She's got a lot of experience creating a very, very rich developer-friendly ecosystem with Heroku, and that is actually a lot of what we'll be using the Series C for, is to launch a full SaaS offering. So Margaret's experience is just going to be fantastic for us to keep scaling this company.
Love it. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the person, the other new board member from B Capital. Why don't you say it?
Yeah, that's right. So Rashmi Gopinath is also joining. Rashmi comes from M12 Ventures, and she recently joined B Capital to help with DevOps, cloud infrastructure investments, basically investments just like Armory. So B Capital is a very fast-growing fund. It was started by one of the Facebook co-founders, as well as Raj from Bain Capital, and they have a very global presence, which is great for us. So another thing about B Capital that we really liked is the fact that they have.
Jordio, I'm gonna stop you right here, man.
There we go. Hey, Margaret. Awesome.
Good morning.
Perfect.
Good morning.
You know, it was almost on cue because Jordio just finished introducing you about 30 seconds ago. So
I do love to make an entrance.
Yes, well, you certainly have, and welcome. Margaret, welcome to TechStrong TV. I'm Alan Schimmel. I don't think we've met before. Jordio was nice enough to give us a little bit of your background, but let's talk about why'd you join Armory? What gets you excited in the morning here?
Well, I would say that the first and foremost reason that I joined Armory is because of the set of people that Jordio has managed to pull into this great company. It's not that the mission is as good as it is, because it's quite wonderful, and it's not that the customer success that it has is as good as it is. It is truly that this is an incredible collection of people that I think are going to do great work in terms of unlocking the power of continuous delivery for the world. So that was probably the first and foremost reason that I joined, I think Armory is really onto something. And in terms of how we actually unlock developer productivity and kind of contribute to the acceleration of the world into software, everything is software, this is going to be the place to be for the next couple of years.
Excellent. I don't disagree with you at all. Hey, I cut Jordio off in midstream when I saw you walk in here. Well, walk in is, it's not really walking in, but when I saw you pop in the waiting room. But Jordio was just explaining to us about your new board member from B. So I'm sorry, man.
No problem. Yeah. So Rashmi Gopinath is joining Armory's board, and she is originally from M12 Ventures. Rashmi has a lot of experience in open source and cloud infrastructure, and so we're really, really happy to welcome her, as well as Margaret. Margaret's also going to be joining. So just really, really well positioned to scale this company.
So it's, and also, two powerful women on the board and a COO. It's a good look, and it bodes well for you, man. But I've been trying to get away, Jordio, from that whole because she's a woman. Yeah, well, that's obvious. Margaret's a woman. I could look at her and see that. But people are people, and quality is quality, talent is talent, skill, experience. So it sounds like you're bringing two real winners in here, and that's good for you guys.
Yeah, I actually would like to talk about this for a minute because it is personally extremely important to me. I wrote a personal blog post about D&I, especially in the Valley. And the way that I think about it is that we are looking to get as many primary characteristics as possible of diversity into Armory, because really what that leads to is diversity of thought. And companies that have heterogeneous thought win over those that don't. There's a great project called the Aristotle Project that there was a big study conducted by Google, which showed that a company will win when every voice in the room is heard, and there's a lot of diversity in those voices. And so it's actually a personal objective of mine to build the most diverse and inclusive company in the Valley. And so this is, this is just a great example of how we are prioritizing those things with action. And it's not that we change our hiring funnel. Our bar is the same. We want the absolute best person. What we do is we really prioritize the top of the funnel to make sure that we're finding as many potential candidates as possible. And we can talk a lot more about that, but it is a very important personal thing for me, for us to build a very diverse and inclusive company.
Agreed. Hey, you know what though? I've been negligent. When I brought you on and then Margaret walked in, I don't think we did a good enough job of laying a little foundation here. Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning, Armory is a company whose mission is bringing Spinnaker as a commercially viable solution to the enterprise, right? With Margaret, as you mentioned, we're looking to do it, offering it as a SaaS solution as well, right? So you have a SaaS version of Spinnaker for the enterprise. And Drodio, you've been on this mission now, what is it, about 3 years, is it?
Yeah, we actually just turned 4 years old, so right. we are just entering our 4th year. And actually, something to share with you that we haven't been as public about, but now that we're doing our Series C, I think it's time to be a bit more public about this. The founders of Armory, there's 3 of us, we're doing 10-year founder vesting, and that's because we're here to build a very valuable, long-term, enduring company. And our vision is actually a lot more than just Spinnaker. We really believe in Spinnaker as the way to achieve Armory's vision, but let me just share with you the broader vision now more publicly, which I haven't done before, which is that we believe, that's right, we believe that software is the highest leverage way to literally improve humanity. When software drives our cars, we're 1,000 times safer than when humans drive, and software's starting to fly our planes now, and it's just it's inevitable that software is just going to be well steeped in every part of our lives. And it happens to be also the highest leverage way to unlock enterprise value. Armory exists to unlock innovation through software. We want to make it take minutes instead of months to go from an idea to a feature in production. And right now, that software development lifecycle is it's very opaque for Global 2000s. It's very difficult to get through it. It's very hard to have safety and velocity. So the first part that really needs to be fixed is to have a delivery component that works in a cloud native world, that works as these Global 2000s leave data centers and start to try to leverage all of the innovation that's happening at the infrastructure layer. And so when you look in the rearview mirror, what you see is that we have been commercializing Spinnaker because Spinnaker is the only way to do that at scale across multiple cloud targets. And what that does is it creates a really solid foundation for us to now start to integrate with the other parts of the SDLC. And if you think about that, there's really just siloed data in every part of the SDLC. And that data doesn't talk to each other. And so what we're doing now is we're starting to unlock that siloed data across the SDLC to get it to work better together. That's what our large Global 2000 enterprise clients want. They want to be able to leverage the investments that they've already made in their existing dev tooling across the SDLC and get it to just automatically work better together in a very developer-first, friendly, scalable, easy-to-use platform. And that's the thing that we have the opportunity to build now. And that's the thing that I'm just so excited to have Margaret here to build, because at Salesforce, she's done a version of this with Heroku. And so, Margaret, you've got a playbook of what it looks like to build this incredible SaaS-type platform. And so we've built this amazing foundation, and we're bringing in this incredible talent and money to finance this next version, this next stage of growth. And that's really the opportunity that we have. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Margaret, I know you want to talk. Give me 1 second. I'm coming back to you. You mentioned money. We never mentioned this round. Was it, I forget now, is it 40 or 60?
It's a $40 million round. $40 million round with B Capital. That's right.
That,
we also have Mark Benioff participating as well, and Lead Edge is also
was that before or after
round.
Margaret left?
Mark Benioff is the biggest Margaret fan. I'll tell you, he is he actually told me personally how thrilled he is to have her join.
Fantastic. And then, Drodio, this is Series C. Your Series B, which was
That's
an
right.
insight round, was also what
That's
was
right.
how much was that one? You would remember.
That was a
I
$28
don't.
million round. Yeah, so we've actually done a round every calendar year. I was actually just reflecting on that. We did our seed in 2016. We did YC in 2017, Series A with Crosstic in 2018, Series B with Insight in 2019, and now Series C with
So what's the
BCAP in
total
2020.
money in at this point?
82 and a half.
That's great. Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
So Margaret, listening to Drodio talk about things that can change the world, right? I think our audience is very DevOps, cloud native, developer, that's our audience. And I think our audience is uniquely positioned to recognize that Heroku really did change the world for a lot of us, right? It changed how we think about how we bring applications, how we bring solutions to, on a pass and just on this whole cloud platform that allowed for rapid, hey man, get it out, make it better, get it out, make it better, get it out, make it better, right? Spinnaker as a SaaS, I don't know if people have really wrapped their heads around that yet, right? My God, because when, we had this conversation, we have a panel that we're playing with this on Thursday about, Spinnaker and recent developments and some of the public cloud companies. But, the perception was, ooh, this is hard, right? Spinnaker is, not for the faint of heart and stuff like that. Now being able to say, hey, man, we can spin you up Spinnaker in a SaaS, which almost by definition seems to make it a little easier. How hard is that mission?
Oh, it's work. I would say that if people can use power tools like Spinnaker that are proven at super high scale because of Armory, then we have taken another step on that path of fulfilling the mission of the company. How developers do things changes over time. Heroku was really born because the founders needed a way to stand up Rails apps, at a mobile agency in LA. And it absolutely fundamentally changed the way that applications got born and deployed to the cloud. So when I think about, what is Armory doing today, open source software and Spinnaker in general are very important to the way that I think innovation is going to occur in the world. It's already occurring, it already has occurred, it will continue to accelerate. But the mission of the company, the arc of it is probably to think more broadly than just Spinnaker over the long term, because what we're really trying to do is actually help software developers get their work out into the world. And there will be a lot of different tools they will use. I'll draw one other analogy there. When I got to Heroku, it was still pretty early days, and Rails, it was still all about Rails. It was all about Ruby on Rails still. And over the time that I was there, we saw that a lot of the applications that people were actually writing, wanting to deploy to Heroku, were written in other languages, or that they required new kinds of data services beyond the original Postgres offering. Redis, Kafka as a service, you name it. So I definitely see that there will be an evolution in how software gets made, kinds of tools and frameworks that people actually use to make it, and how we enable them to get into this kind of multi-cloud target Kubernetes world. And Spinnaker is an important first step there.
Absolutely. So you brought up the whole multi-cloud thing, and I realize it's early in your SaaS game plan, and probably in the first quarter there, right? Not the fourth quarter. Do you envision Spinnaker's SaaS offering being a multi-cloud offering, or does it run on Spinnaker on Armory Cloud? Right. I mean,
that is an excellent question, and it's one of those ones that I think that customers are going to help us decide. So today, as an example, when a lot of the customers that we work with, they either want to deploy Spinnaker behind, on their own cloud, right? Because they have very tightly regulated environment, or they want to use it, maybe on AWS. I am sure that we're going to see customers who absolutely want a cloud service that runs on the infrastructure provider cloud target of their choice. They're absolutely going to want that because they're wall-to-wall Azure, or they're wall-to-wall GCP, or they got a huge AWS deal. But the sequence by which that happens And the timing by which that happens is, I think, where the art of doing this actually comes in and where a lot of the work is for Drodeo and myself and the rest of the Armory team.
I agree.
One way to think about it, Alan, is if you look at what Spinnaker is inside of Netflix, it's not what they open sourced, right? Inside of Netflix, Spinnaker hooks into all of their systems, and it's very intelligent. So Netflix open sourced the engine, but not the intelligence of Spinnaker. You can think about Armory's longer term vision to unlock the siloed data that lives across all of the SDLC dev tooling as a way to provide the Global 2000 what Netflix has today, but we're doing it through integrations. And this is why we've recently open sourced a plugin framework. And there's also, for example, there's a new Splunk CD observability plugin. So now, if I'm a large, Fortune 5 technology company, and I have made a huge investment in Splunk, and I'm also an Armory customer, I can start to make Splunk more valuable because now Splunk is able to grab a lot of metrics that are coming from the actual delivery platform. And so my investment in Splunk now actually means a lot more. I'm getting a lot more ROI off that. Same thing for APMs, same thing for CI systems, same thing for source control, et cetera. So really, if you look in the rearview mirror, Armory's story has been, we are commercializing Spinnaker. But if you look forward, it's really about having Spinnaker be the engine that powers a cloud offering, Armory's cloud offering, that is unlocking siloed data across the SDLC. And we're actually using a number of open source projects to do that. We created a policy engine that's based off of OPA. We are involved with Kayenta. We are involved with Terraform. So, we are involved with Jenkins. So, there's just this kind of like mix of open source projects that we are pulling together into this singular cloud offering to solve the problem that our customers have, which is to be able to have both safety and velocity at scale in this new era of big code, where I'm breaking a monolith into hundreds or thousands of microservices, where I have one or two orders more of developers that I have to manage, that I have instead of one static target, which is my data center that I've had for a decade or two. Now I have this dumpster fire of innovation with all this cloud infrastructure that's only just beginning to really rev, right? And so being able to manage all of that complexity in this kind of era of big code requires a new type of SDLC platform. And this is the bigger story that now we're ready to start to tell the world, which is Spinnaker is the engine that powers this, but what we're doing is we're pulling together all of this best-in-class tooling in one singular platform that solves the problems that our Global 2000 customers have.
So, but that's really the cloud native story, right? I mean, this is the strength of cloud native. It's not just Kubernetes, right? A lot of people hear CNCF or cloud native, and they immediately think it's a synonym for Kubernetes. It's not. Kubernetes is a big part of it. A lot of people using Kubernetes, and I'm sure including a number of your customers. But there's so much richness and goodness there, right? From something like OPA that you mentioned to Linkerd, to, there's 30, 40, 50 different projects that they're just killing it right now, right? For even observability, Prometheus, and I mean, there's so many. And when you start putting them together, right, this is when you get 1 + 1 = 5. This is when you get the real power of that cloud native stack, man. So I agreed.
Our customers, who are these large enterprises that are progressive thinkers and that understand that the way that they're going to get the kinds of PE ratios that a company that, like a Tesla gets, for example, which is many orders of, several orders of magnitude more than their industry averages, is by leveraging software. And so what they're looking for is a platform that enables them to make the investments that they're already making in best-in-class tooling across the SDLC more valuable, work better together in a more seamless way, and allow them to thrive in this area of big code where, for example, one Fortune 20 financial customer of ours has 35,000 application developers that they want to be able to get to production in one consistent way, but be able to leverage all of the richness of the different targets that they want to have access to, the GDPR compliant cloud, the AI cloud, the least latent cloud, the cheapest cloud. And that innovation at the cloud infrastructure layer is something that Global 2000 CIOs just don't have a way to access because they've built these brittle paths into their data centers, and the engineers that built them left the company. Nobody knows how it works, and they're just not prepared for this new cloud native world. So they need a platform like Armory to enable them to take advantage of all of this innovation that's happening at the infrastructure layer and have all the compliance and auditing and security that they need for their actual people.
Well, I'll note here that nobody knows how anything works from top to bottom anymore because the world has gotten just so incredibly complex. And DevOps as a profession in a lot of ways has been this kind of like last line of defense, right? Like whatever happened upstream, however this code got written, the kind of dividing line is how does it get out to production where it really impacts our customer experience, our bottom line, the stability of applications. So having better tooling for managing that complexity is not, I think, an area of endeavor that's going away anytime soon. And what I love about Spinnaker is that it's super proven at scale. Like if you want to really do this the way that Netflix or Facebook or Google do it, then this is the kind of tooling that you will need, and you can grow into it if you are a much smaller company that's in health and life sciences or is not necessarily like a cloud native software company. You can really grow into it with a lot of confidence about being able to trust your business to it. So That's why it's such a good match.
Guys, we're about out of time, but if I want to tie a bow on this, right? It's Armory. It's not just Spinnaker anymore, right? It's really now a platform. So first of all, Margaret, welcome to the Armory team. I think you're going to bring a lot of well-needed or much-needed talent and good things happening. Drodio, hey man, congratulations on the C round. Congratulations on bringing someone like Margaret, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the new board member's name. I apologize, but bringing quality people on board, man. Say it. Go ahead. You can.
Thank you.
It for me. Yeah.
Rashmi Gopinath. Yep.
Okay, and welcome to her. And we'll be watching this. This is exciting stuff. It's time marches on, right? Time only goes forward. Time doesn't go backwards. And this is moving forward. So excellent stuff. Stay in touch with us. Keep us posted, and we'll have you both on soon. Okay?
Great. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Margaret, Drodio. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We're going to be right back with another guest. Up next, I have a great new episode of DevOps Unbound, and this is a episode 4. The subject matter for today's DevOps Unbound is app modernization, DevOps in the mainframe, and I am joined by Gerda Shiganaku of Tricentis, Rosalind Radcliffe of IBM, and Sam Knutson of CompuWare, a BMC company, as well as, of course, Mitchell Ashley, CEO, founder, Accelerated Strategies Group, who's my co-host here. So let us now go to episode 4 of DevOps Unbound on app modernization, DevOps, and the mainframe. Hey everyone, this is Alan Schimmel. Welcome to another episode of DevOps Unbound. This is episode 4 of DevOps Unbound, and then we've also done 2 DevOps Unbound roundtables. So this is actually the 6th DevOps Unbound event that we're presenting, and they've all been great, and I think this one is going to be as good or better than any of them. Today's topic is app modernization and mainframes along with DevOps. Of course, it's DevOps Unbound. We've got a great panel lined up for you. Let me introduce you. First of all, we have Sam Knudsen, and Sam is the a product manager for mainframe and agile DevOps at CompuWare, a BMC company. Sam, did I get that right?
Pretty much, Alan.
Correct me. Get it right for the record.
So I lead product management at CompuWare. We are a BMC company, and we are focused on enabling Agile and DevOps on the IBM z/OS platform.
Fantastic. And the lesson I've learned here is I'll let each of you introduce yourselves. My next guest is the one and only Rosalind Radcliffe. If you want to know about DevOps and mainframes, there's no better person in the world to go to. Rosalind, welcome, and why don't you give them a little bit of your your title and background.
Thank you. Glad to be here again. Rosalind Radcliffe, IBM Distinguished Engineer responsible for DevOps for Enterprise Systems. So I help clients with their transformation to DevOps for z/OS applications, as well as application modernization and bringing z/OS into the rest of the world so you can do your cloud native development for z/OS as well.
Excellent. Then we have, I'm going to do my best here, Gerda Sheganaku of Tricentis. Gerda, how bad was that?
Thank you, Alan. That was perfect, really.
Okay. So Gerda, your background and title?
So I'm with Tricentis, as you said. I have initially started at Tricentis in the customer experience space, where I was leading our customers through their digital transformation journeys, really helping them understand how they can enable testing as a catalyst to really get DevOps working. And then I have moved into the product organization, where I'm currently leading a team where we're releasing our first AI-based test automation solution, which is really about tackling the problems that we see out there, especially when it comes to app modernization and testing of old applications and new applications, and really making testing easier.
Excellent. And then last but not least is my sidekick, partner in crime, Mitchell Ashley, CEO of Accelerated Strategies Group, and also my co-host here on DevOps Unbound. Mitchell, good to see you.
Good to join you.
All right. So, guys, today's topic is app modernization, mainframe, and DevOps. It's interesting. I've been kind of binging on Netflix, that AMC show, Catch Fire, and I forget the name of it now. Anyone else watch this show? It's an AMC on Netflix.
Halt and Catch Fire?
Halt and Catch Fire. You've watched it, Sam?
I'm familiar with the instruction. I've seen the previews for the show.
It's a pretty good show once you get into it. So the company that started in Texas bets everything because they're tired of paying the timeshare people, and they buy an IBM 3030, and that's based in Daly, San Francisco, or Daly, California, near San Francisco. And they literally have to move the whole company to where the mainframe is, versus moving the mainframe to where the company is. Well, it's TV. But but that was the late 80s, right? And we don't live in those worlds anymore. Mainframe applications are running on your phone, right? At least the front ends of them are, on your tablets, on your computers. The mainframe doesn't necessarily fill up. This was a whole basement that was one mainframe, and it was pretty funny. The guy was sliding cards in and stuff like that. If you get a chance, watch the show. It's an interesting look back. But certainly the modern mainframe has come into the world of DevOps, and Rosalind, I think the work you've done with IBM has led the market with that. And quite frankly, Sam, the work CompuWare's done has led the market in Agile and DevOps on mainframes. How would you assess where we are currently in mainframes, in the world of DevOps?
You mean, where the mainframe is or where people are. I think those are two very different things.
You're right. But we're not moving the whole company to the computer anymore, thank God. But let's talk about, where is the mainframe, and then we'll talk about where the people are.
So you've got to remember the mainframe itself, IBM Z, is the most modern machine out there. The IBM Z platform has evolved every few years ever since it was invented, and we keep evolving the machine. So the machine itself is the most modern system, and we've evolved the operating system. We've evolved things such that open source tools work there. We've done everything to remove the barriers from the system so that you can do exactly the same kinds of things, whether or not you're doing ZOS development or another environment. And the Z hardware itself, we all know it runs, we all know on this call, it runs Linux on Z. And so, it's a very large Linux server, and it runs containers, and it runs OpenShift. So from a system standpoint, it provides, there's nothing keeping it out of the processes and practices. There's nothing separating it from a system standpoint. It's the way people interact with the systems. It's their existing applications that make it harder.
Sam?
And, I think Rosalind makes some great points. I mean, the current generation of IBM mainframes, the Z15 is an engineering marvel, and the compilers and the operating system produce this amazingly efficient platform. It is the most efficient hyper-converged system in the world today. But I think the elephant in the room is the word that you used a minute ago, and you said modernization. And we alluded to this a little bit in the way that the practices that people and businesses have today. Well, modernization doesn't mean moving off platform, because we already talked about, and we could go on for an hour, about how great a hardware software platform this is for running business computing. It is amazingly efficient, especially when you look at the large scale global business applications that the Fortune 1000 run, which is where the platform has its largest footprint. So but perception is that modernization is moving your application into a cloud native application off the platform, hosted by another provider, or rewriting it in Java. And nothing could be further from the truth. The COBOL compiler alone is a perfectly paired piece of engineering with that platform and lets you wring every last ounce of efficiency out of it. But people need to get past that confusion and say, what if I could work on the platform in the same way I'm working on every other platform? It's that normalization. And, we've kind of coined the phrase mainstreaming the mainframe to make it different in syntax only. And Rosalind alluded to this. It's being able to work on this platform in the same way that you work with any other platform. So when you think about DevOps, that you have a DevOps tool chain that looks like other tool chains, that you can connect to all of the ecosystem partners that you're probably already using in distributed development. And people are definitely the problem. People and practices and culture. And more than 3/4, in fact, 78% of customers say it would be useful if they could update their mainframe applications more frequently than they do today. So there is an aspiration to change and to get better outcomes. And you can see what they want. They want to be able to deliver value to customers more frequently. And that's just one of the improvements that they want to make. But far too many people are not making progress on that.
Gerda, so you're not quote unquote mainframe, specialist, but certainly app modernization and testing of this. I'm wondering if you have any kind of information regarding people using Tricentis to test mainframe-based applications, and is how big a market is that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So also really one major thing that you always have to keep in mind is, as we just said, especially when talking about app modernization, it is such a wide word and it can mean so many things to different people. And it's definitely something that's challenging for our customers looking at their current system landscape. So you see customers that are having everything in their landscapes, from mainframe applications to also often very legacy mainframe applications that are trying to move on to more cloud-based environments. So that is something that we see very often. But it's really, mainframes are still there, but the thing is that people really want to abstract away from the mainframe. Also, thinking about where we are today, I think an important question we have to ask ourselves is, why is everyone so into app modernization? Why is everyone into migration into the cloud currently? And if you think about it, nowadays every company basically is becoming a software company. And not every company has the talent and the resources to maintain those mainframe applications. Because at the end of the day, honestly, I struggle finding COBOL developers nowadays out there. I went to the Technical University of Vienna, and we definitely did not learn anything around COBOL there. And it's really hard to find that talent nowadays. And when you look at it, so basically every company, be it like in retail, be it in banking, being like in the energy sector, you now want to have connected systems and so on. So really everyone is going more towards being a software company. And with that, for people, it's becoming more and more increasingly important to have like really good platform as a service offerings, maybe going into serverless or software as a service in the next step, but really having not really to deal with the underlying maybe mainframes and having a way of abstracting using simpler technologies and only caring about the applications and the data that they're running on those systems.
So I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I agree with that. I think, so here's the premise of this, right? When we talk about app modernization, right? I'd love to live in a world where I could throw out an old app because I want to have a new app, right? But you know, we don't live in that world, right? And no one lives in that world. We that's why we call it app modernization. We tend to modernize the apps we already have. And so when we look at, I think out of the Fortune 100, 98 are on mainframes, or there's some number like that, Sam or Rosalind, if you know. I don't see 97 and a half of them throwing their mainframes out, right? As a matter of fact, they're probably building more on mainframes. And so what's happening is we're seeing whether you want to call it hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, whatever you want to call it, we're seeing where people can build maybe a front end for stuff in the cloud. But if that data is important, if security is important, right? If scalability is important, dollar for dollar, people who use mainframes know that that's their best bang for the buck. Mitchell, I'll let you chime in.
I have to jump in. So what's interesting is we kind of do this to ourselves with the terminology that we use. Mainframe is a word for a cabinet used to house the computers, the original IBM computers were stored in. If I said, hey, 71% of Fortune 500 companies rely on high volume transaction processing platforms, 10 out of the 10 world's top insurers, 23 out of the 25 world's top airlines, 92 of the top banks, percent of the top 100 banks rely on high volume transaction processing platforms. You would say, wow, that's pretty cool. And it runs Linux and it runs containers, and you can connect it to all kinds of applications from tablets and phones to wherever your application may be running on cloud or on premise. You'd say, wow, tell me about that. I'd like to learn about that. That's what mainframes are. So it's interesting. It's not going away. And we do this to ourselves. I said the analysts have done this to us too, right? Today, it's all about this next shiny object, this squirrel moment. It is so vital to businesses today, and moving it into how we create software with DevOps and processes like that and tools to support it is essential for businesses both economic recovery, survival, and future. Digital strategies can't happen without it for many, 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 many companies. Okay, did I do a good job, Rosalind and Sam?
Mitch, those were great stats, and I think you did a great job quoting them. And I boil that down to simply saying the worldwide economy and worldwide civilization runs on the mainframe. And I like the word mainframe. It has a little swagger. I don't think it's ever going to go out of style.
Nostalgia.
And renaming the platform could make it cooler. It simply gets things done. We haven't renamed cars yet. Maybe we'll rename them to highly efficient transport platforms. But I think we'll still be calling them cars when they have electric engines powered by portable fusion reactors. But customers see this as a long-term platform. So BMC does an annual mainframe survey, and the 2020 edition is going to launch soon. And I can tell you that 90% of the customers see the mainframe as a platform for growth and long-term applications. 68% of them expect the size of that compute platform to grow, MIPS to grow. 67% of those organizations have the majority of their data on the mainframe. They trust it because, as you said, it's highly available, scalable, secure. And to go back to Gerda's key point, about younger workers, that is absolutely essential. But what's going on is that people are addressing that, because I think Rosalind and I both alluded to this. The syntax of COBOL isn't, Aramaic. It isn't some incomprehensible script. If you put modern tooling around this, if you put modern process and a great supportive culture that gives you have a great developer experience, you have a great developer culture, then learning the syntax of COBOL is no more difficult than learning the syntax of Perl or Rust or Go. So we see that customers who see the platform long-term are making the appropriate investments. And in the responses to that survey I mentioned this year, younger mainframe workforce definitely figures in. 43% less than 5 years on platform. 68% were under 49 years old. And 60% of that new generation see this as a growing platform. And that really matches the experience that I've seen, in CompuWare's journey, is that we hired out of college, and we have been hiring out of college, and those next-gen developers are more than a third of our workforce now in Detroit. And many of them did not know, COBOL, and many of our applications are written in assembler. They certainly didn't learn assembler in college, but what they did have was a strong bent for learning new technologies. Many of them came with computer science degrees. They had learned how to learn. They were what Gartner calls polyglot programmers, 1, 2, 3, many in learning languages. So whether we needed to learn assembler or COBOL or C, it didn't matter as long as we provided that supportive culture, the vehicles for learning, and we gave them meaningful work early on in their employment and made sure that they understood the vision, mission, and goals of the firm, how they were contributing to something that matters. And I think our customers are having similar success in onboarding next-gen developers by doing some of these same things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the statement, I can't find COBOL developers, because when I was hired in to work in this industry, nobody assumed you knew the language or the system you were going to work on. That was the thing you learned. You learned how to develop. And then you came in and learned the company's culture and the company's tool choice. By using modern tools, modern practices, all of these things, the things they've learned in college on how to do, they've already got. And then the only thing they're doing is learning COBOL. And as I always joke, it's just English. And I know that works really well in the US and parts of the world. And in other parts, it's still a foreign language. But it's not a difficult language. It's easy to understand. PL1, another one, it's not difficult to understand. It's just another language, and developers can learn other languages. But I am kind of with the discussion about the mainframe is not the word we should always use. And we really need to focus on how do we talk about our platform. I like the term mainframe too. I still use it, but can we talk about our platform as this platform that provides this valuable high transaction server? It's that big server, and it's that big server as part of your pipeline. It's not that old thing. it's that big new thing that runs all this work. And now let's focus on the applications that, honestly, the best thing IBM ever did was a program you compiled in 19 whatever still works today. And the worst thing IBM ever did was that program that you compiled in 19 whatever still works today. It's the best and the worst of the platform. You don't have to change. It still just works. And if we can help companies understand, if they start to change some of those, they can do the automated testing, they can do all those things, they can get more value out of their platform, they can help refactor and be able to move at the speed they need to.
So go ahead, Gerda.
Yeah, these are all amazing points, and I hope no one got me wrong at the beginning with what I wanted to say. So really, it is something to. I really like what Rosalind just said, to talk about the underlying platform that is really enabling everything. But the point that I really wanted to make is that most companies are now becoming software companies. So we don't have that knowledge center of IBM where there are so many smart people and you can learn from people and really develop that amazing platform that you offer other companies. But when I look at our customers, it's usually kind of self-built kind of mainframes that are sitting there, that are not maintained, that don't apply to current recent security standards. In those customers, what you see them do often is they all hear the cloud is the next thing. We all have to go to the cloud. And they all do this one big mistake that they just take whatever they have and they basically do the lift and shift approach, bring it to the cloud and hope that everything's going to work. Of course, that's not going to work at all. Also from a cost perspective, that is insane, thinking about how much cloud resources actually cost you if you don't do all the optimizations and so on. So what you see people do is kind of a step-by-step learning approach where they are taking things from not so secure systems, bringing them over to other systems, then starting to refactor the applications and giving more and more also responsibility to the development teams. And once they do that, you see the development teams really getting that DevOps approach, really caring about the infrastructure and so on. And for the developers, of course, it's easier if they have container-based applications that they can simply deploy and so on. But of course, underlying, it's very, very important that you have a secure and great platform that is enabling all of that.
So I think that's a great case for why you'd want to use a mainframe or whatever you call it, because it's probably more secure than the cloud is, I think, and it's been proven. But here's an interesting thing I'll tell you is here I see in DevOps.com, right? This is DevOps.com, mind you. And it was surprising to me. Our biggest article last year on DevOps.com, most views, most comments. The Beauty of the COBOL Programming Language by Bob Resselman. I figured, I don't know, it had 500,000 or something, maybe more, like a crazy amount of views. And most of the comments were by COBOL programmers in India, because there they recognize that there's such a need for COBOL programmers that you have a lot of young people who are studying COBOL because they know it's basically a guaranteed job for them, right? And they come out and they start working right away. Here's another interesting thing that my friends at Tricentis will appreciate this. What do you think was another huge area of interest in DevOps.com? Running SAP in a DevOps world, right? We don't think of SAP as DevOps enabled, or, maybe not even agile. But yet, even we did a roundtable a week or two ago on SAP and DevOps. I had to cut the questions off and these were meaty questions. How do I do this, that, and this, that release, right? It wasn't just pie in the sky. They were very how-to, practical. We're running SAP and we're moving towards Agile and DevOps and we're doing these things. So while everybody, we always rush to the shiny new trinket and the hot thing in our industry, I think the fact is certain things endure, and as Rosalind said, it's both their greatest and worst attribute. It is, but let's talk a little bit about app modernization, because I think Gerda alluded to it, and Mitchell, I'll throw it out at you. No one wants to do shift and lift or lift and shift or whatever. It didn't work in 2005 when the cloud first started, and it doesn't work now. But how do we do app modernization right in a Z environment? Sam, CompuWare's made it was the reason for your being in a lot of these last couple of years, right? Something Chris O'Malley always harps on. How do you do modernization right in a mainframe world like this?
So first, you do it on the platform, because I can't say that enough. When you see people try to avoid touching the mainframe apps that live on the mainframe, they do unnatural things from an architectural point of view, and they create these horrible kludges that are not robust, that are not scalable, that are not the most efficient implementation, and that aren't easy to maintain. So you want to bring those practices on platform. You want to provide developers with helpful editors, with quality tools. You want to tap into automation pipeline. So build a CD pipeline that goes right onto your platform, so that you give developers a great developer experience, but you keep the business logic and the data on the platform. And that goes to a number of things. You talked about security. Something that I learned a long time ago: the more copies of data you have, inherently the less secure it is. Because typically, when mainframe data is moved off the mainframe, the security controls that are on the platform are not replicated. So if you can take that core business logic, that digital DNA that a business has inscribed over 20, 30, 40, 50 years, continue to leverage that. And of course, leverage systems off platform. And CompuWare really blazed this trail of using cloud and mainframe together with two platform IT. We think these things are incredibly complementary. But what you don't need to do is replicate that data all over the place. You don't need to necessarily have a lot of on-prem systems. The term hybrid cloud was used, and that's a nice modern way to talk about that. We say two platform IT because these things will pair very, very well. And the cloud, by the way, is an absolutely great place to host commodity applications. If you talk about your company's email system, I probably cannot run Microsoft Office better than Microsoft can with Office 365 in the cloud. And they can provide all the qualities of service, the latest updates. It's a good solution. Can I do invoicing better than a cloud provider like NetSuite or Oracle? Probably not. But what I want to do is focus on those applications that give me unique business advantage, the things that I wouldn't find in Amazon, Google, or Microsoft's application catalog. Those applications give me a competitive advantage, and in updating them, I increase that competitive advantage. So I can provide new features, new capability. So I want to take that on-platform application. I want to bring to it things like automated testing, make it part of a CD pipeline, give my developers a great set of tools, and give them a great culture of development to help the firm be successful. That is the best approach to modernization I know of. And of course, I work very hard to provide those things, including, program understanding, so that developers can really get into code that they may not be familiar with. Because like when I talked about younger mainframe workforce, that's a good thing, but it also means that I don't have people who've sort of apprenticed with an application for 10 years before being allowed to do important changes. And, you have people who are new to your firm and they're being tasked to do important work. So they need to be able to understand an application that may be older than they are quickly enough to, inside a 2-week agile sprint, make a change, test it. Hopefully there's already automated tests present, but if there's not, they want to write some new automated tests and deliver that all as working demonstrable code at the end of that sprint, because that's the way the world works today. So if you do that, you're blazing down the road towards application modernization. And it's easy to talk about, but it boils down to just hard work.
Well, I think that to build on what we've said here, I look at it as three elements to the strategy here. And this is just also sharing my own personal experience with doing this. First is the people and the culture and the getting our heads around new processes, new ways of, or additional ways of doing things. That's what DevOps is about. Second is processes and tools, which Sam is just eloquently talking about. I think the third obstacle to app modernization is this tackling the monolith, because a lot of our applications were built differently, that we're looking at how do we modernize. Well, why do you want to modernize it? Sometimes it's because we have to figure out a way to get in there and better maintain it because it's just kind of too scary to tackle. The people that built it aren't there anymore. Another reason, though, is, and I think the way to tackle that sort of monolith part of it is looking at our applications and saying, what functionality, what capabilities, business capabilities in the apps are most important to having the most flexibility or improving the speed at which we can improve that software to respond to and support the business. If we're living in a world of changing how we're delivering services into contactless, we're living in a world where supply chains are going to from inventory to on demand, whatever it may be, examine those applications, pick out where those elements are, and those are good candidates to go in and say, let's carve out that piece and look at some newer alternative designs for how we can more easily maintain or more quickly develop capabilities in that part of the software. Doesn't mean you move it off the mainframe, may stay there, may be a combination of things. But that's also part of app modernization. It's how we create software and the tools that we do it. And sometimes how do we take on really big problems, but divide them into much smaller pieces that we can do something about.
Yeah, the application modernization of a Z application does unfortunately involve understanding it. And so having those tools for application understanding is the first key, but then actually understanding the business is the other key. And so it's a combination of application modernization tools and understanding the business domains you're trying to go after. Really thinking about what are the areas, what are the focus areas, and understanding what you need to run. Lots of discussion about microservices, and I always question, do you really want a microservice or do you want a service? What level is the right componentization for this function? And I always use banking example because this one's the easiest. I need my credit card swipe to happen, and I only have a certain number of nanoseconds, whatever it is, to make that happen. I'm not going to make that 1,000 microservices. I'm not going to make it 100. I'm going to make it a service. That service has to run fast. It has to be efficient. So it needs to be written as not a monolith, but a service itself. Where is that service? Is it bundled in the middle of something else that's doing a whole bunch of other function? Can I strip it out? Can I make it? I need to look at the applications. So using application understanding and the skills we still have today, because in many companies, they actually still have a few people left that wrote those apps, not maybe for much longer, but they have them now. Let's start to look, use application understanding, the next generation, and learn from each other. I think the next generation, the newer developers have a lot of skills in a lot of the new tools, and the people my age have the experience in the app. So let's bring these people together to help build this new culture, to help bring this together. Let's take advantage of both sides and the tooling, because even if they helped write the application, they still don't know the whole thing anymore. It's a monolith. Bring it together and take advantage of these people. Use the people, both sides of the people, bring all those skills together with the tooling to actually help you understand the business domains, the functions that you want to do, and split up that monolith. And maybe you're splitting it up into a bunch of COBOL programs. Doesn't matter. You're providing the business value that you need to in a more maintainable, manageable way.
Fair. Guys, we're running closer to the edge on time. I wanted to touch on the issue, though, because it's what Gerda does a lot of, and that's around testing, right? As we're modernizing these applications, mainframe applications, we're keeping them on the mainframe. Maybe we're hybridizing them, if that's a word, right? Putting, front end here, back end there, whatever. We're modernizing the applications. Testing is an important part of it, as it is always. Anything special in particular that we're doing around the testing of the modernization of mainframe applications that perhaps is different than, Gerda, go ahead.
When you think about testing, really, just as the whole topic of app modernization, also testing can be split into so many different bits and pieces. So the one bit is really the architecture that we're speaking about. Where is everything hosted? Are we dealing with a monolith versus are we splitting everything up into service-oriented architectures or microservices or whatever we want to call those things, really making sure that we shift testing more to the left, that we make sure that the components are tested and such. Then the other side is really around the infrastructure. So really thinking about, do you have those physical servers or do you have now more VMs, cloud-based environments? Do you have containers and so on where you're hosting your applications? Making sure that the intersections are tested properly. And then another point that's also very important is really also the process side of things. So the delivery side, are you having like more of a waterfall environment or are you going more towards an agile DevOps environment? And all those things also go hand in hand. So it's not the typical approach would be, especially you would have some more legacy type of applications that are running in the background that are really the backbone of your business. And then you would have more flexible applications built on top of that. And for each of those, you need different testing approaches. And something that we saw here, especially when we say shift testing to the left, was that while it was so far really possible to shift testing to the left when it comes to testing, doing unit testing, doing API testing and so on, it was always very hard when it came to end-to-end testing, especially across systems, when you have different systems, older systems, newer systems, all working together. Because there you really didn't have that concept of just defining your tests up front, and once everything is ready, you just run your tests. It was really very difficult, especially now I'm focusing on the space of UI testing. Currently in the UI space, it was basically impossible to do that. And that is also something where AI approaches can help in the future, because if you look at the applications that we're interacting with, no matter what technology is used in the background, no matter what type of programming language we're using, if we're having something in the cloud or on a server, it doesn't really matter. How we interact with applications as humans hasn't really changed so much over time. When you look at banking systems from 20 years ago, I made an analysis, they look just the same like today. It's really the applications that we work with on a day-to-day basis, although they move from one platform to the other, the technology keeps changing, bits and pieces keep changing. The way we interact with it really doesn't change so much. So there it really helps to bring in AI-based approaches that help you kind of take that human perspective when performing those tests to really be platform independent.
Excellent. Sam, Mitchell, Rosalind, any thoughts on testing and app modernization with mainframe?
I would just jump in and say it's a great place to start. Not to say you're starting from scratch, but maybe you are. That whole CI/CD testing. And as Gerda was saying, you can use cross-platform approaches, right? It doesn't have to be one set of tools for this, one set of tools for that, et cetera. It can be, but there are some advantages to leveraging that knowledge base that Rosalind was talking about. You've been doing testing now. How can you take that to the next level, whether it's getting quality up or speeding up how quickly you can do releases, whatever the driver might be. And as Gerda talked about, those are some fantastic approaches to take.
Rosalind?
Yeah, testing is one of the ways that we see people getting value fast. And it some ways takes less cultural change. It's easier maybe to get them to do automated testing, and automated testing is actually what makes you faster. You need that ability to test the system, and shifting left using virtual services, shifting left by virtualizing the whole system, allowing you to test your application in the build process, doing unit test really does help in the mainframe space to get that feedback really fast. I mean, it helps in every space actually. But in the mainframe space, we seem to have forgotten this. I don't know why. When I started, we did it. Okay, 20 years later, people forgot. Getting to that unit testing, that automated unit testing, and making sure we're doing that virtual testing, whatever it is, to get that application transaction and really have that capability. And there's lots of tools out there to do the testing. And the other part is it has to be cross-platform, because most Z applications are not Z only. So things, open source tools like the Galasa framework that help you test across distributed in Z matter. Things like test data as a service matter. Use optimizations, looking at AI for data and understanding what data should you feed this. And multiple people have capabilities around that to look at the right data to test, to make sure you get that fast feedback all the way at the beginning and get that developer that input, so they aren't waiting that 6 months of testing, that late stage testing that is the reason why everybody says the mainframe is so slow, because they spend too much time at the end testing. Let's shift that all and bring it to the beginning. And then, there are people delivering weekly into production because they have automated testing in place.
Absolutely. Sam, I'm going to give you the last word, then I got to wrap it up.
No, I think automated testing, and you have to underscore automated, is critically important. It's one part of this, and it's not about the old, fast, cheap, good, pick two. People need to continuously improve quality, velocity, and efficiency on the platform, and automated testing is a key part of that. You will get measurable results, and you have to measure the results. So you have to put automated tests in place, you have to put quality aids in place, and then you have to measure that. And if there's one thing that we probably didn't spend time today on that I think is a worthy thought for people to put front and center, it's you've got to measure from the very beginning what you're doing, because any effort like this is going to entail some amount of spend in terms of resources. It is a worthy spend. It is the natural evolution of development for the platform, but you have to treat your developers like the high-performance athletes that they are. You have to give them continuous feedback. So, use an analytics platform where you can understand what's going on with your development process, what's going on with your testing, so that you can see the results. And, for when I looked in-house, what we were able to see is that as we evolved our development approach from waterfall to agile, and we put these, automated tests in place, we gave our developers a great developer experience, continually improving their tooling and our tool chain, we were able to get measurable results, like 25% more trapped defects, that were caught before they ever escaped into customer hands. We were able to get twice as much code from individual developers, and deliver at the speed of business. We didn't get those results if we didn't make the changes, including automated testing, including a great developer experience. None of it is optional. You don't get a hall pass on any of this. Pick one and start, but you really have to think this is a journey, and you're going to have to address all of these if you're going to get the outcomes that you want and be the most competitive that you want. And I've seen customers getting amazing results that are measurable by outside firms where they've done studies and been able to see more than a 467% ROI from implementing automated testing and building net new applications on the mainframe. So this works. I've seen the proof points. I've seen the customer case studies. I would just urge people who have been sitting on the sidelines to get in, because the competition absolutely is modernizing the way they build applications on the mainframe.
That was a strong finish, Sam. Thank you very much. Good stuff. Hey, Sam Knudsen, VP Product at CompuWare BMC Company. Rosalind Radcliffe, Distinguished Engineer, IBM Enterprise Systems. Gerda Sheganaku, okay, from Tricentis on product for AI testing. And of course, one and only Mitch Ashley. This is Alan Schimmel. Many thanks to Tricentis, by the way, for sponsoring DevOps Unbound today. This is Alan Schimmel. We'll be back in about another 2 weeks with another great DevOps Unbound. Stay tuned. But for now, that's it. Take care. Bye-bye. Up next, we're going to go to our managing editor, Charlene O'Hanlon. Charlene has some news around the MediaOps sites today, as well as I mentioned before, an interview with Scott Leatherman of Vertana, and a preview of this week's webinars on MediaOps. Over to you, Charlene.
Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at MediaOps, and I'm here now with the Tuesday edition of the news headlines. On DevOps.com, we take a look at the ways that mainframes can become more agile in the era of COVID-19 and beyond. We've covered DevOps on mainframes for a while now, as companies including IBM, CompuWare, and BMC have sought to bring agile and DevOps processes to those machines that process the systems of record. But as COVID-19 has changed the way we do everything from work to buy groceries to do banking, the growing workloads of those machines demand that organizations pivot those machines to be able to move with more agility. Like digital transformation, this is becoming a must-have for organizations that rely on the mainframe. We also have an article on embedded analytics that can help and how they can help organizations set their apps apart from their competitors. Nowadays especially, moving away from decisions based on instinct toward decisions based on analytics and metrics delivered by centralized systems is critical to making more informed business decisions. This article covers the key challenges, scenarios, and checklist considerations that product managers need to tick off before implementing any type of embedded analytics solution. And in the news, we have Cisco's latest moves to converge network operations, also known as NetOps, by adding support for Terraform tools for managing infrastructure as code, as well as expanding its support for the Ansible IT automation framework. Cisco is moving toward embracing open source automation tools that are being widely employed to automate the management of IT infrastructure. And that transformation is being driven by DevOps teams, many of whom have assumed control over IT infrastructure budgets as network operations are more integrated within DevOps processes. The gap between DevOps and network operations clearly is narrowing, and the focus is shifting to tools and solutions that make convergence easier. On Container Journal, Mike Vizard reports on startup Pixie Labs, which has raised a little more than $9 million and has emerged from stealth to launch an observability platform that can be deployed natively on Kubernetes clusters to begin analyzing data in just a few minutes. The Pixie platform is a distributed machine data system that creates streaming telemetry pipelines. The goal is to create an observability platform designed primarily for developers rather than IT operations, which historically has focused its efforts on monitoring individual components of an IT environment. But as more applications are deployed across a distributed Kubernetes environment, observability is becoming even more critical. We also have a how-to article that walks readers through securing Kubernetes clusters, complete with command lines. This is a pretty extensive article covering everything that needs to be secured in a Kubernetes environment, from the control plane to the worker nodes, and offers a number of tips to help organizations create and maintain a secure Kubernetes cluster. This is really good stuff, and it's especially helpful if you're stuck on just one thing. This is a step-by-step guide that helps you get over that hump. And over on Security Boulevard, Richie Jennings takes a look at news that Google stands accused of agreeing to overly broad search warrants, which might violate the Fourth Amendment. Federal law enforcement asked Google to tell them who searched for a particular address within certain dates. This is in relation to the R. Kelly federal racketeering case. In June, the SUV of a government witness was torched, so the FBI served a search warrant on Google to determine who had Googled the victim's address before the arson. Google gave up the information, the perp was arrested, and life goes on. But this is part of a disturbing trend in law enforcement, one of overly broad data requests for large groups of users in search warrants rather than one single request. It's becoming more common, and the drumbeat is growing louder among privacy advocates, who are increasingly challenging these search warrants on the grounds that they are a violation of civil rights. We've also got another take on some of the threats that are looming over the remote workforce during the pandemic and beyond. It's been about 6 months or so since the world shifted gears and decided that telecommuting was a good thing. However, for many organizations, this was their first dip into wide-scale remote work. That has meant a longer period of adjustment for the organization and its employees alike, and it has also proved to be fertile ground for cyber criminals. This article explores some of the more popular ways that hackers are taking advantage of work from home to infiltrate networks and exfiltrate data, as well as some of the security threats that organizations will see becoming more prevalent even post-COVID. All right, that's all that I have for today. Please check back on Thursday when we'll have lots more news headlines. And in between then and now, please check the sites often for news and information that is coming fast and furious. Have a great day, everybody.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everybody, welcome back to TechStrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at Media Ops, and I'm here now with Scott Leatherman, who is the Chief Transformation and Marketing Officer at Vertana. Hey Scott, how you doing? Great to see you.
I'm doing great. Great to see you too.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining me today on TechStrong TV. Want to talk to you a little bit about a survey that you guys put out, or that you guys conducted at least, and some of the issues that you guys have found surrounding cloud transformation and cloud migration, especially as it relates to the global pandemic. So, can we start out a little bit by you telling me just a little bit about the survey that you conducted and how you guys went about it and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. If I can indulge you, just to say, Vertana is one of the leading providers of hybrid cloud optimization. So we understand what it means to manage the private cloud and the public cloud and that journey. And so when we conducted the survey early in the disruption of COVID-19, we were asking our customers and our partners, and then we actually went out to the Global 2000. Now we have 300 of the largest brands in the world that are customers of ours, but this, as you said, it went out to the Global 2000. So we got the survey results back, and a lot of it was kind of what we knew about the cloud and the challenges, because we've been doing it for 10 years. Mm-hmm. But the overwhelming fact that was alarming to us is that 60% of the customers who had rushed to the cloud, if you will, just in a panic, were having to move things back and having to move or seeing just really horrible performance, as well as just, incredible cost influx. And then, then we compared to other surveys like McKinsey came out with a survey saying that only like 13% of the migrations were actually improving performance and cost, and less than 60% of their survey actually saw a business improvement, which is different than what we're stating. But you put those two factors together, it really paints a scary story for the Global 2000, and just, anybody in that trying to understand the migration path. And then you layer COVID and the tsunami of challenges that put on the infrastructure, both from edge apps to mission critical apps.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I've been hearing so much about digital transformation in the era of COVID. And yes, so many companies did try to cram 5 years worth of digital transformation efforts into 6 months, and to varying degrees of success. So it's really interesting to hear that so many companies experienced less than optimal performance when the cloud, with that rush to migration, and they're pulling back their efforts. So what do you actually attribute some of these cloud issues that they were having to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And obviously I can't speak for every business, but in general, there is a lack of transparency of what was actually happening in their infrastructure. So the combination of storage, application, DBAs, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 applications, all of that was happening. And there was a lot of, there's a lot of shadow IT organizations, there's a lot of moving parts. And then when COVID pushed, a large portion of their resources outside of their firewall and outside of their physical four walls, it really created a challenge for them. So one of the unique things that we do as a software is we actually map the topology. The first thing we do is we go in there and we look and say, here's the topology of your application infrastructure, your storage, and this is what you're working with. And that usually is so enlightening to these huge companies, because they have such broad service levels, that just having that transparency is a game changer. And then they work with us in our cloud migration practice to say, in a scenario, if we move this, what is the impact? If we move that, what's the cost impact, security impact, performance impact? And having that ability to run a simulation and say, if I move this, what is the cost? What is the best performance? And then looking not just at one cloud, but multiple clouds and saying, if I move this to Google or Azure or, AWS, what's the cost implication? Having that step, if you will, to plan it out, but also understanding you can run a scenario on it and validate it before you move it with your actual data is a huge game changer for our companies, so our customers.
Yeah, well, it would make sense that having that level of visibility into exactly what the network is made up of, both the things, the knowns and the unknowns, if you will, would have a huge impact on the success of a cloud migration. Do you think that there's also a lack of education and knowledge base around different cloud services providers and different cloud services that are being offered, and maybe that contributed somewhat to the not so successful migrations?
I'm going to pivot on that a little bit. I think there's actually the cloud smart versus cloud first. I think there was this rush to the cloud where it was just like, if I get it to the cloud, I'm successful. Right. Whether it's Azure or GCP, I'm not going to pick one for the other. They do specifically have some brands that they're building in big data and other areas. They're not all equal, and certainly not by pricing. And some of the more frustrating trends around locking customers in for 2 to 3 years to lower their price defeats the whole reason to move to the cloud. So if you start with that smart cloud, what I need to move in order to build my business, what I need in order to, exceed my SLAs, that type of mentality versus just moving to the cloud in a lift and shift is really the game changer there. I don't necessarily believe it's one cloud provider over the other cloud provider. Having the flexibility to move and to understand the implications of moving is critical.
Okay. All right, great. So I know in your Global 2000 survey that you guys also discovered that 80% of large enterprises actually started their hybrid cloud migrations like 3 years ago. So what do you say when you're looking at those results regarding the success of those companies over, quote unquote, the rest of them? I mean, were they as a whole kind of more successful in kind of hurrying or accelerating their migration strategy?
Well, again, it's kind of about the fact that they had already planned and mapped it. So right. What they saw by not pausing because of COVID and staying the course, they saw less disruption. They had a plan, they stuck to it, but ultimately because they were moving, they actually understood what the implications were on the applications and the storage, and that allowed them to react better to COVID. The ones that paused and said, hey, let's wait this out to see what the economics are or what the impact is, saw greater disruption in their business, in the infrastructure of their business, because it basically, it had a cascading effect that really troubled them. And then they, some of them got into a hurry up mode, which again, that's always a challenge too. So in our survey, we did see those that had started the plan and had a 5-year longitudinal plan did compress it significantly. Most of them went to a 2-year plan. But again, those were the people that had this in place long before the COVID disruption.
Okay. All right. So do you see, when you say you see there are companies that actually had to pull back their efforts, are they pulling back to the point of actually starting over again, or are they kind of pulling back to the point of getting to a level or a place where they can possibly, do that mapping and kind of maybe in tandem with their cloud migration efforts, or are they kind of starting from square one again?
Most of them are actually kind of taking the time to do the mapping, and then moving things that are not making sense back, and moving things that are over to different clouds and different infrastructures, if you will. So we didn't really see anybody say, okay, let's pull the plug and start over. That's not necessarily a realistic solution for their business.
Right.
We did see people say, wait a minute, we have to move some things back because we just can't simply afford the way this application is running in the cloud, because it wasn't built for the cloud. So therefore, the cost and the performance isn't matching what we had in our own data center that is paid for and already up and running and secure. So that challenge, there's lots. Again, this is I'd love to talk to you for hours about this. Is where I can speak for hours. The security, the compliance issues, all of these things are really changing, and we're seeing healthcare companies that normally wouldn't be moving to the cloud or accelerating to cloud, because let's be honest, the future of pharma, the future of healthcare is really about cloud enablement, the rollout of the vaccine, and care through the COVID has really changed the way they are working in their infrastructures. And so we're seeing that impact today. We're also seeing the economics of all this, the overspending in the cloud. It's all part of this one red thread, if you will, of rushing to the cloud and not really understanding the need of the business, the need of the infrastructure, to make sure that you're not just moving everything. We do see that eventually, data centers, it will be the 80-20 rule, where 80% in the cloud, maybe 20% on-prem. But today we saw, in particularly in 2020, we saw a big rush, a big pause, a big recalculation from some of our prospects and customers, and it really did disrupt the world. But those that had the plan in place and stayed the course saw the biggest benefit.
Excellent. So taking a look at some of the companies that maybe you guys are looking to do business now, or who have come to you, are you seeing a change in their cloud migration strategies as it maybe as it pertains to this new distributed workforce, the fact that everybody's working from home these days? Are they putting a greater emphasis on maybe particular parts of their infrastructure that they want to migrate to the cloud that maybe perhaps they weren't considering before?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons why Oracle and SAP are doing incredibly well during COVID. It's those applications that were maybe a tier 2 or a tier 3 application because they were internal use only, now are tier 1, and they're mission critical until they figure out the access and control and performance of them and cost. But yeah, private data centers or private cloud offerings, application-specific offerings are all doing incredibly well in this marketplace because of that challenge. And as we, as a collective community, figure out how to resource our employees efficiently and as well as cost effectively, that is a continued focus of the cloud migration path. Absolutely.
All right, great. Well, if folks want to get their hands on this survey, is it available to them?
It is, and actually we have another survey that we're running right now that will have a new results, an updated result, if you will, from lessons that we learned coming out in the next month or two. I think it's probably slated for the beginning of November. And we have an IDC report that's a third-party validation as well. So there is the existing report on the Vertana.com website, and then we'll have a couple new ones out in the next, don't hold me to these dates, but October 23rd, I believe, is IDC, and then the first or second week of November, when we launch our newest product, VCIO, we'll come out with another survey around that.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Scott, thanks so much for taking the time and walking me through this survey. And maybe in a couple weeks or a couple months, we can have you back on TechStrong TV and talk about the results of the other surveys that you guys have coming up.
That's great. I'm a big fan of the brand. I love Security Boulevard as well. So.
All right, great. Well, I'm always glad to hear that. So, Scott, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more TechStrong TV coming up, so stay tuned.
Disruption is occurring across every aspect of IT. Open source, cloud services, DevOps, and cloud-native software architectures are democratizing IT and radically transforming how business is done. The old ways of creating software and doing IT are being replaced with agile, flexible, faster, and cheaper methods, benefiting vendors and users alike. Accelerated Strategies Group is out to democratize access of industry expertise and knowledge. We use our expertise and experience to offer insightful, intelligent, useful information in a variety of formats relevant to the IT community, digital events, videos, reports, assessments, workshops, and implementation projects with tech vendors, IT organizations, and business leaders. We widely and openly share our work products, often for free. Analyst reports these days aren't worth more than a graph or chart that tells a story or illustrates a market trend. We work with developers, DevOps teams, cloud architects, security engineers, and transformation leaders most every day, creating and implementing transformational strategies and technologies. We're not just thinkers, we're also doers.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to TechStrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at Media Ops, and I'm here now with the Tuesday version of the webinars previews. As I tell you every single time, we have a lot of great webinars coming up on DevOps.com and Security Boulevard, but wanted to let you know about some of the webinars that we have coming up this week that hopefully you'll be able to take some time out of your busy day to watch. The first webinar is called Introduction to Chaos Engineering, Finding Failures Before They Become Outages. This one is happening Thursday, October 15th at 9 a.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. It's sponsored by Gremlin. This webinar is kind of interesting because it's a primer of sorts on chaos engineering, really what it does, what it is, and how we can make an organization's applications more resilient. So definitely worth checking out if you are interested in chaos engineering, if you've heard about it, you want to learn more about it, or if maybe you're considering implementing it into your DevOps strategy. So please check this one out. Gremlin is also going to be introducing what it calls the 5 W's of chaos engineering during the webinar, which is what, why, when, where, and who. Again, this one is happening Thursday, October 15th at 9 a.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. The second one is also happening Thursday. This one is happening at 11 a.m. Eastern on DevOps.com, and it's called Are You Ready to Start Your SRE Journey? This one is sponsored by 42 Lines. This webinar is a deep dive on the SRE role, Site Reliability Engineer role, and why embracing risk and implementing the principles of SRE can help modernize a business and propel innovation. So moving from a legacy style operations to SRE has a number of benefits for organizations, including the ability to better measure and evaluate where the business is in terms of customer experience and the most efficient uses of existing and new technologies. So, this webinar explores what organizations can do to successfully implement the SRE role within their organization. And if it's something that you've been considering, please give this webinar a check. The final webinar I want to let you know about today is also happening Thursday. This one is happening at 1 p.m. Eastern on DevOps.com, and it is called Driving Service Ownership with Distributed Tracing. This one is sponsored by Lightstep. And it covers how distributed tracing can help organizations build more effective documentation, make on-call less of a burden, and even measure the success of on-call using service level objectives. As more organizations embrace the idea of service ownership, so holding teams accountable for metrics such as the performance and the reliability of their services is an important element of that. So this webinar covers how distributed tracing really does fit into the service ownership ideal and how organizations can make distributed tracing work for them with their service ownership implementations. All right, that's all I have for this edition of the webinars preview. Please check back on Thursday when I will have a whole fresh new batch for you. Until then, have a great day. Please stay safe.
Okay, up next is our Analyst Corner with Mitch. I made a mistake. It was all those flies buzzing around, had me mixed up. Mitchell, the interview with Jeremy Burton of Observe is with Mike Vizard today. So we have two Mike Vizard interviews on Channel Roundup. Mitchell has his own commentary and video. Let's now go to our Analyst Corner with Mitchell Ashley, CEO, founder, Accelerated Strategies Group.
Welcome to Analyst Corner. Mitch Ashley, CEO at Accelerated Strategies Group. There's many, many great things that I love about my job and my company and the people that I work with. One of them is also the people that I get to talk to, get to interview, get to have conversations with, whether it's in research or just a casual conversation for TechStrong TV or one of my other kind of mediums that I do interviews for. And today's no different. There's a gentleman by the name of Kostas Chousas, who is a gentleman from Greece. He left his job, started an open source company, kind of had this idea for some open source software. I'll not give it away, but he's CEO of NetData. And really, he's one of the folks that I would describe, at least from the interview that I had with him, a true believer of the open source model. Built value by building a community because he built valuable software that people wanted to use. And then he built a company around that and got funding for it, and probably didn't have too hard of a time once you have as many users as he has. So they just did another round of funding. So I think they have a total of 31 million for NetData. So pretty interesting. 3.5 million users, not bad. So it's fun to see how rapidly and how passionate he still is about building a company and building open source software. So I'm going to jump right to it. Here's this interview with Kostas Chousas, who I think you'll really enjoy his kind of infectious passion.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
This is Digital Anarchist.
I'm joined by Kostas Chousas, founder and CEO with NetData. Kostas, great to have you on the show. Great to be talking with you.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely, of course. Love to hear about, you've got some really good news. We want to dig into that. But before we do, tell us about yourself. You're founder and CEO of the company, and tell us a little bit about NetData, what you guys do.
So, okay, as you see, I have been an executive for many years for big companies here in Greece, where, I have been CTO, COO, CIO, all these kind of roles. But I was always a fan of open source, open source software. So I think that my career has been influenced significantly by open source. So I always found some time to contribute back to the community. This is what I did with Nedata. So I found, I was really pissed off, frustrated, let's say, with the monitoring solutions. I had a few problems back in 2014. I tried every monitoring solution out there, but I couldn't find out what is wrong, what's happening. So I got really frustrated and I decided to do something about it myself. I started experimenting with a tool. I actually flipped the monitoring principles, let's say. So I changed a bit how things are weighted in a monitoring, the specs, the principles of a monitoring solution. And I released this in 2016. So in 2016, I pressed the release button on GitHub and it went viral. And the data, I immediately appeared at the top of Hacker News, at the top of, many articles all over the world were writing about the data. A lot of fun from a lot of people. The data got 10,000 GitHub stars in just 2 weeks. It's probably the fastest growing open source project. So I dedicated my entire free time to it since the release, since its first release. And in 2018, I quit from the job I had. I was a co-founder in a fintech company. So I sold my shares, I quit this job. And I started building the data as a company. Now, of course, I know you have a lot of questions, how an open source software, a successful open source software can become a company, how you can make money, all this kind of stuff. The good stuff, the good thing here is that we have great traction, great market fit. So today the data is being downloaded more than 1 million times every single day, even today, which is, for a B2B software, is wow, it's amazing.
That's fantastic.
We have a community of about 3.5 million users, which is growing with by about 6,000 new users every single day. So all these are amazing figures. And because of these amazing figures, we enjoy a lot of traction among VCs. So many VCs are very keen to invest in us. And we have a very aggressive business plan to monetize the data and change the monitoring world, the monitoring industry and landscape forever. So well, I am here for questions.
Yeah, let me say as a fellow entrepreneur, that's fantastic. Congratulations on the success you've had, and smart move. In hindsight, right? When things work out, makes everyone look smart, right? But good move. Having such good success with the open source project, and then building a company around that, because just share with you my experience. In open source, it's all about credibility. You really are about open source, or you're not, and folks sniff you out pretty quick, and get through the marketing hype and know whether you're really committed to open source. And when you start out the way you did, clearly you are. So that's fantastic. And then go for it. Take something that's working. Clearly you found a niche that people said, I have that problem too, and this is solving it. So that's fantastic. Well, tell me. So you've been in market since 2018. And, you're VC funded, correct?
Yes.
And where are you today? So 2 years into the company, or approximately two years, you obviously have had a lot of people using the open source project. Do you have a commercial version available now? Or are you still working on that? Has that been released? Where are you in your kind of product life cycle?
So the whole point with Nedata is that we have this amazing open source project. It's the best single node monitoring. So if you want to monitor just one computer, one node, one server, this is the best you can find out there among open source, commercial, whatever solutions. It's a monitoring in a box, and it's actually opinionated monitoring. So most of the solutions out there are, let's say, they provide you the tools, the infrastructure to build your own monitoring. Netdata is a monitoring out of the box. So we're trying to save money, to save time for our users. So the moment you install Netdata, immediately you get, after seconds, you get a fully functional monitoring solution out of the box. Zero configuration, zero maintenance, so everything, even alarms, dashboards, everything is pre-configured. Of course, you can customize it, but it was really important to give people a way to have a fully functional monitoring solution immediately after installation without configuration. At the same time, you know, I said that at the beginning that I flipped a bit the pillars of monitoring. So Netdata, the other way around. Most of the monitoring solutions today are trying to cherry pick a few very important metrics and give you an airplane view of your infrastructure. So it's a bit fuzzy and blurry, but the key things are monitored. What I did with Netdata is that I provided a bird's eye view. So I collected all the metrics in full granularity, full detail, full resolution, and we rendered all the metrics in a meaningful way to help people understand them. So Netdata is a tool that you know, helps engineers be a lot more efficient in troubleshooting issues. We have a lot of users that are using Netdata for validating, certifying their installation. So if you install Netdata without configuration on a newly installed server, and Netdata does not complain about anything, then you are good. Your server is good. Because Netdata has all the community expertise in it. So we have this open source project that is the best single node monitoring. It's free. It's going to be forever free. We don't want to monetize it. It's a gift to the world. We also maintain it, you know, bug fix it and improve it all the time. But at the same time, we are building a SaaS offering. This SaaS offering connects to all your Netdata and attempts to give you the same thing, but at the infrastructure level, at your whole infrastructure level.
Ah, okay.
The nice thing with this is that we again give it for free. We say, okay, and we will always give it for free. So we have a go-to-market strategy that relies on being massive, you know, to have massive adoption, massive adoption across all users. So let's think, there are many companies that do it like that. Let's think a bit about, for example, GitHub. GitHub is a version control system, but can you buy version control from them? No, you can't. What you can buy is a door to the free version control. So advanced security features. Let's take Slack. Slack is a collaboration engine. But can you buy collaboration from them? No. What you can buy is increased retention. So the collaboration engine is for free, but if you want to access more than 10,000 messages in the past, you have to pay to get a paid plan. The same for Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a CDN. Can you buy CDN from them? No. What you can buy is enterprise plugins. So Netdata is a monitoring solution, but you can't buy monitoring from us. The monitoring is free. What you can buy from us is increased retention, advanced security, enterprise plugins.
So that's kind of the finding that right balance, that point of you want monitoring to be free, but at some point you're going to want some other capabilities, right? So you can get you want to be able to get tons of value out of the free software, the open source software, or a commercial software like Slack that you're saying. And then at some point there are some other capabilities that you'd like, and that's where the company will make money. So it sounds like you've found a nice tipping point, or where that crossover point is of, yes, the security, it's retention, it's some other things that you'll make your money at. And people get that. People appreciate that. They don't have a problem with that.
And at the same time, you know, what is more important is that people are very keen to be engaged with these companies. So they want to provide feedback. They want to make this product better. They want this product to fit their use cases. So we love this kind of interaction with the community. We love to be as open as possible and, build a system that is very well suited for the needs of the enterprise. It's not something that we thought. It's not something that Fortune 500 companies need. It's something that the world needs, which is amazing. I find this amazing, fascinating.
Well, it's so hard to do a product from the start and then build up, mind share, marketing, kind of get yourself out there. When you've got an open source project that's successful, you have to also have an engaged community for it to be successful. I believe it's the two come together, or you don't have one or the other. So you've already got a community who likes the technology, the open source, wants you to be successful because they like it, and they want to tell you about it, right? They want to share problems, they want to share ideas, they want to share enhancements, they want to contribute in some cases. There's lots of ways to contribute, right? More than just code. So it's interesting. What have you learned about doing an open source company that you maybe didn't know before that? I mean, you knew a lot about open source from your leadership and IT background, business background. Since you've done that data, what do you realize now that you just didn't fully appreciate or know before that?
I would say that, working on an open source company is a lot more fun because, the primary goal you have is to please your users. You are not focusing only on money. You are focusing on making the people that use your solutions more efficient, more effective. On the other hand, it's not that usual. So it's not that easy to find people to work for you having this mentality. It's harder because, you need people that are extroverts. You need people that are very keen to admit their faults and improve with the interaction of the community. It's not easy. It's very sensitive for a lot of people. So it's not easy. But I think that the overall, this is a fun procedure. I enjoy it. I enjoy it very much.
I think some people would describe it a labor of love, right? You love what you do, you believe in what you do, and that makes it fun, right? Well, now you've had a recent event, a funding event, your Series A, is it right, or Series B?
Series A1.
Series A1, okay.
So we extended it.
Tell us a little bit about the recent funding that happened.
So for NetData, it was always easy to find money because of the market fit the open source project has, and the traction and the community size and the likes. It has been always very easy to find funds. So when I was raising money, I always tried to pick the right partner. It was not about finding the money. Okay, money. I could find money easily, but picking the right partner was very important. So in this round, it was amazing because a year ago I raised Series A, and immediately after we got this Series A funding, we were approached by Bessemer Venture Partners. And we had a meeting, and they presented to us what they believed that NetData should do. And it was amazing because it was the first time that an investor came to me with a business plan in mind, a go-to-market strategy in mind. It was amazing because it was almost, entirely, we had almost entirely a match, 100% match, 99% match. Because they were saying to me, my business plan, it was really, really amazing.
You've got a match, the synergistic thinking there. You have alignment with your investor.
Yeah. So we spent a year collaborating in various aspects. You know, they have been really engaged with the data. So when the time came, it was very easy. It was very easy for us. The decision was already there. And this is what happened. This is why we chose Bessemer Venture Partners, because we had a perfect match on the business aspect. And also, of course, Bessemer is a big name, you know, to have on board. It's a big name, and you know, it is of the VCs, of the investors that are very keen to be involved in all aspects of the business. It's not just money, which I find amazing. You know, the Greek guys also, my first investors, Marathon, were very keen to be involved in every aspect. So these guys, the Greek guys, have been my product managers initially, my, you know, recruiters, my whatever I asked, they were there. And I find it amazing that Bessemer, a much bigger, one of the biggest VCs in the world, has a similar approach.
Well, excellent. So this is a great story, and it's great to hear about how the synergies and how you're working with your investment team. So you, this last round was what, 14.2 million? Do I have that correct?
14.2, yes. And the total funding of the company is 31.
Great. Well, tell us, what are your plans for the use of the funds? What are you expanding, building out sales? Are you investing more product, or?
So currently we are working on building NetData Cloud, the free SaaS offering. So most of the funds, 85% or so, will be allocated to that purpose, in salaries and, you know, hiring the best people in the industry to help us build this thing. Then we have, of course, a lot of marketing activity related to spread the word, to engage the community, to participate in events and all this kind of stuff. But these are minor. Most of the money will be allocated in developing the product. We plan to start where we do not have any revenue yet, so the product is not there yet. The paid plan. We believe that we will start building the paid offerings in a year from now. Whatever we built until then is free and will always be free forever.
Excellent. Well, good. It's fascinating learning about what you've learned and what you've experienced, as well as about the product and the company. And of course, we wish you the best. Keep in touch. Love to hear how things are progressing and some new things happening. It's I would say a very kind of center of the target approach, taking open source, if you're truly, which you are, you know, an open source company. And
open source, I think open source is one of the major breakthroughs of our time, is one of the miracles, you know, of this world. It is amazing how it distributes technology. And I think the world is going to be a much better place with open source in it. So
I agree.
For me, it's not just, you know, it's not just a freemium thing. I hear a lot of companies saying that, okay, this is a freemium thing. No, this is not.
No, I agree with you. I think I look at it as it's a massive source of innovation. And that's really what you're gaining. It's not the price. I mean, you would pay for it, right? Customers will pay you for parts of this in your future, but you have access to so much innovation out there that you would never do on your own. You may not be able to buy. You probably won't be able to buy, you know, so I think that's why it's got such strength.
And, you know, one of the best things that, you know, VCs told me is that what I have built with NetData, even before the company, as an open source, as a purely open source project, what I have built with NetData is something that money cannot buy, which is, I am proud for it, you know, because I built a project that is very popular all over the world, and actually I did it with zero money, nothing.
Just the sweat equity, as they say, right? Well, Costa, this has been fantastic. I love talking with you. And do keep in touch and come back and see us again, okay?
Perfect, yes.
Great. Costa Chouis is founder and CEO of NetData.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Hiring great DevOps and cyber talent is a huge challenge for technical teams. Cloud transformation is driving demand higher. You've tried doing it yourself. Job boards, LinkedIn, didn't work. Recruiters are an option, but who do you trust and not waste your time and money? RecruitOps is the new way to source engineering talent. From MediaOps, the people behind DevOps.com, Security Boulevard, Container Journal, and more. We sit right in the middle of the hottest positions in Dev, Sec, and Ops, and the brightest minds in the field. If you're looking for a great position or the talent to fill it, we can help you. Trust us, risk-free.
Okay, we're going to give you 2 for Tuesday on Mike Vizard today's channel roundup. We have 2 interviews. One is with Mike with Observe CEO Jeremy Burton, and one is Mike interviewing Samantha Madrid, Vice President of Security Business Unit and Strategy for Juniper Networks. Here now is Mike Vizard.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Jeremy Burton, brand new CEO for the brand new Observe. They've just picked up $35 million to drive observability. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Invite.
So let me ask you, observability has been around for a while. So why is it now that suddenly everybody's getting interested and there's VC money pouring into the category? All the big guys are jumping in. What's driving the conversation?
No, you're right, because in observability, it's been around since the 60s, actually. Even before I was born. I always used to be the young guy in tech. Now I feel like I'm the old guy. But yeah, it's from control systems theory in the 60s. And it's all about trying to figure out the state of an application from its external outputs. So can I suck in all of the sort of digital exhaust from the application and determine what's wrong, or what the problem is? And so I think you're seeing it now because the infrastructure that people are building their applications on is different, right? It's Kubernetes, it's AWS. It's sort of very different to the LAMP stack of the prior generation of applications, and in fact the way we build applications is very different. I mean, at Observe, I think like a lot of companies now, we do continuous delivery. So you've got new code going into production every day, and so you're in a situation where you've got new problems and problems you haven't seen before in production every day. And so how do you troubleshoot that? It's not like, hey, we spent a year building an application release and we've done 6 months of acceptance testing and we know all of the issues and we've seen them all. Like, those days are gone. It's like, hey, new code into production. Okay, it's not working as we expected. How do we troubleshoot that while the application is still running? And observability, the promise is that you can ingest all of the data, the logs and the metrics that the application, the infrastructure emits, and you can troubleshoot the app. You can figure out actually what's going on.
So monitoring has been around in one form or another as long as the term observability. So what's changing here with our traditional monitoring tools versus what we're trying to achieve today?
Yeah, you're still going to need like monitoring and alerting. I think there's people will want to know when something of interest that I need to look into has happened. So I think you're going to always see sort of monitoring and alerting, but maybe the best analogy. I mean, I sort of like maybe bank account is a good analogy. Like, I need an alert when my bank balance is getting to zero, and that's useful because then I don't incur bank charges. But what I really want to know is, like, why is my bank balance zero? Is it because I've taken too many Uber rides? Have I been going to, getting special Starbucks coffee instead of regular? What's the rationale for me being overdrawn? And can I then rectify that behavior in future? And I think that's really what people are wanting to get from their observability offering is not just an alert that something's wrong, but let me investigate and determine the reason why. And that tends to be the hard part. We've all said when an application runs slow, you're like, hey, why is that going slow? Oh, the internet's slow today. It's like, no, it's not. What is actually happening? Tell me what's happening. And the promise is that you're now starting to get a set of tools that can actually tell you what's happening.
What will make you guys different? There's a lot of people out there talking about observability, and we've been instrumenting applications for a while. So what's changing here in terms of making this maybe a little more accessible or just easier to do? Because I felt, at least, observability is one of those things that's much easier said than done.
Yeah, there's people. People we've talked to so far. The sort of the stereotypical greenfield site where everything is new, and I can now start to, instrument my code with tracing and it's structured. Those environments do exist, but there's not many of them out there, right? I mean, that's sort of the best case scenario where sort of you as a vendor get to dictate to the potential customer how they should instrument their code so that it makes your tool work the way you would like it to work. And our approach has been, well, look, where the customer is today, let's get them a better way to consolidate the data that their application is emitting, like right now. So if they've got logging that's maybe been in the code for years, we'll take that. If you've got application or infrastructure metrics and they've been emitted through Telegraph or something, we'll take that. If you've got Zipkin tracing in your code, maybe you have implemented a distributed tracing library, we'll take that. And we'll pull it together into a single data store. And then some of it we can make sense of out of the box. So, if data's coming from Kubernetes or AWS, we know how to transform that data into things that people understand, like containers and pods and EC2 instances and S3 buckets and all those kind of things. And then the application, we would work with the customer to say, well, in your current instrumentation, show us how you identify a user or a trace ID or something like that. So some of these things come out of the box, and some of these we work with the customer. So for us, we feel like differentiator is really twofold. We bring all of these different kinds of data together into one place, number one. And number two, we don't insist on a wholesale re-implementation of tracing or logging that maybe you've had in your code for several years. You can sort of start with what you've got today. As you observe your application, it's going to become obvious where you need more instrumentation, and it's going to be obvious where your current instrumentation is useless. And we very much believe in this iterative approach to getting to to where you want to go. And I'd say finally, we can do this because I think we attacked the problem from the data on up. We didn't really set out to build a tool. I mean, of course, the user does observe a tool and a front end, but we felt like if we could solve the problem of bringing the data together and making sense of it, then the user would be able to, over time, eliminate more and more tools from their environment. So, I think the data approach was really sort of the unique aha, was if we bring that together, the tooling will be better. If we can't bring the data together, the tooling will always be fragmented.
Now, you guys have chosen Snowflake as the back-end platform for the collecting of the data. Why did you do that? And, because a lot of people seem to build their own data lakes and all these different tools. So what's the thought process there?
Yeah, it was a fairly controversial decision. I mean, I would tell you within the company, even within the founders, it was tough to get an agreement on that because there's a school of thought that we need to do all of this in memory and we need to build our own query engine. And by the way, that's what almost everyone else in the space has done, right? Right back to, Splunk's probably 15 years old now, but I still think one of their key things was building a database that is optimized for handling unstructured logs. But we felt, even 3 years ago, we felt like Snowflake was going to be special. It's obvious to everyone now it's a special company, but it certainly wasn't 3 years ago. And we did have a couple of early engineers from Snowflake, so they were predisposed to going in that direction. But I would tell you, it was one of the biggest areas of technical risk for us. We had to get comfortable that we could build an interactive application on top of what is a data warehouse. And there's all kinds of tricks that we pull under the covers to make that happen. And it's safe to say we couldn't have done it without the early engineers. But as we sit today, we're feeling pretty good about it because Snowflake is getting better. And it can handle the unstructured logs. It can handle the time series data, and of course, there's traditional relational data that you would expect it to do very well. And we do envisage people being able to share financial data into Observe, and then we could potentially join that with the machine data that we analyze. So you might be able to set an alert if one of my 10 best customers has an issue on the website. Let me know. That would be like a useful alert. And we could do that because you have context, right? You have financial context. You know who your best customer is because you've got the financial information. So joining that with sort of the web logs can help you do some interesting things, like providing better alerting, which everyone tends to get overwhelmed with.
One of the things that people associate observability with is it's a core tenet of DevOps. It's a principle of the whole movement. And yet, it seems to me one of the things you're trying to do here a little bit is maybe make observability more accessible to a broader number of people. So what's your thought process on, do I have to be an SRE to do observability, or can I just be a mere mortal IT guy somehow or other and get some value out of this?
Yeah, we tried, and this was a big debate with the product early on, because you sort of you almost want the power of something like a Splunk and log analytics. And hey, if you want to work down and dirty with the data, you want all that flexibility. But obviously, not everybody can do that, right? But you also want to have this almost APM-like view of the data, where it's sort of it's abstracted and it's higher level. And so in the end, we came up with a model whereby we could have an abstraction on top of the data and then produce a very visual interface for, like the DevOps team, or even the more junior members of the DevOps or the SRE team. And then for the engineers, maybe the development team, we could publish the data that underlies that almost dashboard-like approach into a worksheet, so the developers can go at it like they would, a Splunk or something like that. So the nice thing is you've got this common data set under the covers, but you've got a couple of levels of abstraction depending on, how capable you are. And I think this is particularly important because often the poor person on call is often some of the more junior member of the team. And you need to have that person be able to triage and troubleshoot such that if they have to, God forbid, get some of the more senior guys out of bed, they're getting the right people to troubleshoot the issue. So yeah, you've really got to have both.
Those senior guys get a little cranky when they get called out of bed when it's a simple problem. So how can you kind of make sure that doesn't happen? Because most of the junior guys would just as soon not make that call.
Yeah, I think the interface for the more junior guys on the team has got to be simple enough for them to get oriented quickly. So it's got to be an abstraction. We have this concept called landing pages, which are dashboards where you can still filter and work with the data and start to narrow down where the problem is. But when you think that you've narrowed down the problem to a certain area, you want to have an elegant handoff to the more senior engineer who's maybe going to investigate and troubleshoot and find root cause. And we essentially do that by just publishing the data that underlies that dashboard to a worksheet, and the engineer can come in and work with the data directly, which honestly is what they prefer. And under the covers of Observe is our own language called Opal, which allows you to go directly manipulate and work with the data, so you get as much flexibility as you want.
So you raised $35 million. You got some heavy hitters on the board. Do you think you're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with, just this week, Sumo Logic was talking about observability. Oracle is out there talking about that. I know you're familiar with those guys. What's your sense of, where is there room for a startup in this space?
Yeah, I think that the space is super interesting because data's at the core of it, and I feel like if you can provide a better way for folks to understand their data, I've put it another way. I've long believed that like almost any question is just a matter of data, right? If you can provide an elegant way for people to navigate it, then you can answer most questions. And I feel like been at the startup my entire career pretty much, and I've talked to you for quite a bit of it. I've been at the bigger company. And so I've been the one trying to respond to the startup who's sort of driving a wedge between one or two product lines, that I've been looking after. And I feel like the nice thing about Observe is we're not an APM product, and we're not a log analytics product, and we're not a metrics monitoring product. We're sort of all of the above. So we don't really fit in any box. And I also would say that observability is it's still a relatively new concept. I mean, if you just go look at Google searches on observability versus, I don't know, log analytics, there's way more people just doing basic logging than really doing true observability. So I feel like there's still a long way to go. And the bigger guys moving in this direction, like we don't have the power to sort of move the market for everyone to want observability, but I think the bigger players do, right? So I actually like the fact that they're all getting on board with it. And my dream would be that every company has got a director of observability and an observability team that has budget. And, it then makes it a lot easier if you're a vendor going and selling observability. Because today some companies have it, but most don't. As you mentioned, there's like a DevOps team and there's an SRE team. And how are they different to IT ops? And what about the cloud platform engineers? Are they different? And do we still have sysadmins? And it's sort of a little bit all over the place. So consolidating around a center of excellence, which is called observability, to bring these disciplines together, I think would be a beautiful thing. And my hope is that the big companies do that.
All right, so you'll send everybody a thank you note for helping to create the market.
Yeah, that would be marketing money well spent. Would be to say thank yous to all the big guys.
What is your sense of where does, you have a long background in storage, and as I start looking at this whole space and the way you're talking about it, at the end of the day, is this like some new glorified storage application? And, it's not too far from home from where you've been all these years.
It's a little bit different. I mean, certainly, EMC and Veritas, they were in the storage and the data business for sure, but were very different to like my days at somewhere like Oracle. You obviously need somewhere to put the data, and you're always going to need that. And these days, I mean, Amazon S3 is almost the de facto place that you want to put large volumes of data because it's so cheap. I mean, $20 a terabyte. And so we allow folks to ingest large sums of data because we essentially can ingest it for the cost of Amazon S3. And then Snowflake picks it up from there. And Snowflake is more like Oracle in this model. It's the database. And then what we do is we shape the data, we make sense of it, and we use Snowflake to query it. So I'd say Observe is much more like an application running on, in old speak, it's much more like an application running on Oracle than it is like an infrastructure. For me, Amazon, the cloud providers are really going to dominate the infrastructure. And I think the new database, I mean, I've waited for years for there to be a second coming of the database. I think like everyone, I thought Hadoop was it. Mm-hmm. Turns out it was Snowflake, but I think you're now going to see an ecosystem of partners build on top of Snowflake in very much the same way they did Oracle years ago. Back then it was transactional apps like PeopleSoft and SAP and these things, and then the BI companies like SAS and Hyperion and Actuate and Business Objects and so on. And I think you're going to see a new wave of companies probably on top of Snowflake that are much more focused on analytics because machines generate most of the data now, not humans. So transactions are less interesting than analytics.
All right. So where are you guys in this journey? How does somebody sign up if they're interested?
Yeah, we're still early. We did a company launch so to really let folks know what we were doing. The product we're accepting early access applications. So we're working with about 15 companies right now. So we're still very small, and the product. My hope is that we get it finished up before year end. But for us, what's key is customer feedback at this point. We've got to make sure that the features that we include are a good fit for the workflow of the people that we're trying to sell Observe to. And you only get through listening intently to customers. So if anyone is interested in working with us, it's observeinc.com. You can register for early access there. And we'd love to work with more people across the country.
All right. Hey, Jeremy, thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And back to you guys in the studio. All right. That was cool and simple and easy.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. Well, so what are you up to these days, actually? I mean, because you seem to do a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm, basically all those things that I used to do for publishing companies, I kind of do for myself. And then I work through a bunch of different companies. DevOps is owned by MediaOps. They own Security Boulevard and Container Journal and DevOps.com. And then they own this. They also own Digital Anarchist, where is the repository for all this stuff. So this will run stream next week, and then they'll put it up on their repository after that. And then, I'm mostly just writing for a lot of people. I do a lot of ghostwriting. I do a lot of white papers for people. I do some blogs on different vendor publishers, because the vendors have all decided that they want to be in the publishing business. And you wrap all that together, and it keeps me pretty busy.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention it, because what we've noticed with the whole COVID thing, I mean, obviously a lot of these early customers that we're getting, we have, inside sales guys who make outbound calls to get the sales guys meetings. But in the COVID world, we don't have a lot of mobile phone numbers, right? So what everyone's realizing is look, this outbound calling thing, I always thought it was over, but it really is over now. And so what ends up happening is, and I just hired a digital marketing guy out of Palo Alto Networks. Actually used to work for my old friend Renee Bombany, who you might remember. And so, but key to the digital marketing is content, right? We need high quality technical content, otherwise no one's interested. So yeah, as we get going here, if you've got interest if you need any more writing, we might have, some need there as well.
All right. Well, when you get further down the path, give me a shout, and we'll put the proverbial Zoom call together.
Cool. I love the green screen behind.
All right, buddy.
All right, man.
I'll see you
Good
later.
rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.
CI/CD pipe and put your observability on. Ground control to Major Tom.
10, 9, ignition sequence
countdown, engines on.
6, 5,
check ignition 4, and make God's love be with you.
This is Digital Anarchist.
All right, guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Samantha Madrid, who's the Vice President of Security, Business, and Strategy for Juniper Networks. Samantha, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Mike. Nice to be here.
We've been talking about the progress of the convergence of network and security for some time now. And I feel like post-COVID, everything has accelerated. So is this convergence going any better or faster in the wake of COVID? Or what are some of the factors that are driving this from your perspective?
Well, COVID is certainly one of them, but we've been on a trajectory of having the network and security convergence for quite some time. And as you just said, COVID is certainly accelerating it. It's really requiring customers to rethink their strategies, their timelines, and what we're seeing is just an acceleration.
Are the networking and security teams melding together into one thing, or does everybody still have their own little independent swim lanes and there's just more collaboration, or how is this coming together?
I think there's certainly more collaboration. Everybody has their own roles and responsibilities. I mean, effectively, we all do in our day-to-day jobs. But I think what you're seeing with this transition and these changes to the architecture, they're coming together. They're realizing that as networks are becoming more decentralized and you have the opportunity to improve upon many aspects of it, you working together with both the network and security teams is proving to be extremely beneficial. I think we're seeing this most in the cloud transformations.
You guys have launched a couple of programs recently to kind of accelerate that. Why don't you walk us through a couple of them to give us some examples of how that works?
Absolutely. So yesterday we had a very big announcement. We announced additional enhancements to our connected security portfolio. We announced adaptive threat profiling, which allows security administrators and networking administrators to utilize the changes that are occurring in their network to better arm them against in real time, provide the protections that they need. We also announced the ability for risk-based assessments on all devices connecting to the network. I think one of the biggest things that most CIOs and CISOs are really driving to understand, and the question that needs answering is who and what is on our networks. And that's what we set out to answer with this release. And so we're very, very excited about that. We've integrated Woot Cloud's hyper-context deep learning engine that gives not just additional insights, but it also allows for real-time risk-based assessments so that you can either force additional authentication, remove people off the network, and really glean more insight into what's happening. And then lastly, we recognize, based really how we just started this conversation, COVID is accelerating a lot of different things. And the home worker and being remote is certainly requiring customers to think more about their security postures and their policies. So we wanted to extend the goodness that is Juniper Connected Security to all the home users so they could benefit from all the security technologies that we have as a part of the portfolio that we're introducing yesterday, and that can just then extend to wherever the user or the device is.
Are we kind of looking at some sort of primordial soup of perfect storm, or whatever buzzword phrase you want to throw at this? But if you think about all these people are working from home and more stuff's up in the cloud, and well, let's say we're going to have a bunch of edge computing platforms in the future, is this just kind of a massive recipe for insecurity?
Well, you know what it is? So it's funny, when you kind of think back before convergence that we're seeing before any sort of global event, you know, we've kind of siloed, and it was actually your first question, are teams working better? We've kind of siloed based on architecture functions historically. And security kind of was relegated to what a lot of people would speak to as the perimeter. And so you had very specific technologies. You had firewalls, you would have proxy-based technologies, and you would have endpoints. And we kind of relied on those technologies exclusively to provide us insight, take action, and to give an overall threat assessment of an organization. Now, I don't think that necessarily is wrong in and of itself, but, you know, my personal belief, our personal belief with the Connected Security strategy is that security needs to start with the network. It needs to include all security technologies, but it is more powerful if you can tie security to every point of connection, because really that is how you're going to achieve the ability to properly safeguard your users, your applications, and your infrastructure. And so for us, we're on a mission to completely change how you secure a network. So I don't see it as a doomsday, and I don't really see it as marketing. What I see it is just really taking inventory. If the networks are becoming more decentralized, and you're taking advantage of cloud compute and bringing things closer to the edge, why not rethink your whole security posture as well? Just putting a firewall in the cloud doesn't necessarily change your ability to respond more quickly. It just keeps your line of sight directly to those technologies. So again, firewalls play a very, very important role. I mean, we continue to innovate. Our firewall has been recognized by a number of third parties as being best in class. And so we're very proud of that. But we also know that again, can't be exclusive to a firewall. So we've been slowly introducing new capabilities over the past 2 years that integrate all the global threat intelligence that we see and bringing our networking equipment, so our routers, our switches, our access points, more threat aware, and they can also take in insights and actions into what's happening on the network. And that's really the shift that needs to be made.
Is the network perimeter as we once knew it dissolving? I mean, and people are using SD-WANs and the traffic's being routed to the cloud and some back to the local data center, and then some people are backhauling this, that, and the other, and there's just a lot of bi-directional traffic. But what is the role of a perimeter going forward, or do we need one?
I love that question because you can, I've read a number of articles online and you had various vendors saying, oh, it's dead, perimeter is dead. No, the perimeter is not dead. The perimeter is just taken on a new form. The perimeter now is anything that has access to your network. That's your new gateway. Your user's smart device is a gateway. Anytime you have access to confidential information and you can get on a network, that's now the perimeter. So the construct has certainly changed. There's no question. And that's why I still believe that, security technologies that are deployed to monitor the gateway, no matter what shape it takes, is important. But that, again, can't be the exclusive means for providing threat intelligence. That can't be the exclusive means for providing protections, which is why we fundamentally believe security needs to start with the network, and then in which case you can properly see really what's happening, and you can have the ability to be responsive, both in real time and later to further investigations.
All right, well, since we're playing a little buzzword bingo here, zero trust architectures, what does that mean? And do I have to throw out everything that I currently have to get it?
There are a number of reference architectures that customers align to. Zero trust is one of them. Secure access service edge. You have zero trust, secure access. There's a lot of different terms out there, but what it all talks about at the core is you need to understand where your data resides. You need to be able to segment your traffic based on identity, and you want to make sure that you have the visibility within your network to take the appropriate action. I don't think there's a right way and a wrong way, but the challenge is if you are only limiting your capability in terms of security protections to only security devices, then you're not really going to be able to achieve true segmentation. You're not really going to be able to achieve true control over data. Let me give you an example. If someone is targeting your network, why not allow your router the ability to take an explicit action? Why even allow that connection to carry on through the network and wait for it to get to a firewall? It makes no sense. If there's something that's a known bad, ransomware attack taking place, why wouldn't you want your infrastructure to respond accordingly? And then you leave the more content inspection related traffic that requires more contextual insights to specific technologies on the network that could make those decisions.
We hear a lot about the term DevOps and ruthless automation and the idea that we're going to turn everything into a programmatic experience and maybe we won't be relying on GUIs. And of course, the irony is DevOps guys are using CLIs, and we just spent a long time trying to figure out how to teach network guys to give up the CLIs. So now we're going back full circle with more powerful CLIs, apparently. That's all good. But what's your sense of how DevOps and NetOps and security ops will all meld together in the future, if at all?
That's a great question. I'm a big proponent of automation. I think when we can automate specific tasks, when we can automate intelligence, I think it allows for quicker responses. In the security context, I think that's what allows for a network to respond quickly when there is a potential compromise. And so for me, I think all roles benefit from automation. And for the basis of using any sort of orchestrated based technology allows for a more focused action into what's taking place. So I'm a huge proponent of it. I think you're going to see more automation-based capabilities built into technology in general, security and networking alike. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a more predominant role for those types of technologies and individuals moving forward.
How smart will the infrastructure get? We hear a lot about AI all the time, but short of Skynet, I don't think that's going to happen. But it seems like the algorithms are learning things, they're doing things, and how does that kind of come together in a way that optimizes security and the network performance, and we're not always trading off performance for security? How can we get to this next level?
Well, what this does, what AI and machine learning based systems do is it kind of settles the noise. Many years ago, as a security industry, we thought it was a great idea to aggregate all this data together. And there were a number of technologies that were designed to do this data aggregation. But the challenge is all that did was bring the noise into one central location. The more you enrich and utilize machine learning to identify either known bad or unknowns, it enables you to, again, have that focus on where you need to spend your time, what policies need to be created, and how you can strengthen your network posture overall. So I just see it as a benefit. I think, one of the things I always tell customers is when you're using ML-based systems, when you're using any sort of AI driven technology, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And so I use the term garbage in, garbage out. So just throwing data into an ML-based system doesn't necessarily net you positive insights. You have to start with what are you trying to understand on the network? What are you trying to use your ML or AI-based system to show you? And then you map back into the data that's going to give you that information. Just throwing, again, everything at it and expecting a miracle is not going to happen.
What is your sense of resistance to that idea? It seems like for a while, before COVID anyway, people were kind of going, I don't really believe that will work. And they were kind of dismissive of AI. And I'm wondering if you're seeing a bit of a change in attitude post-COVID, because we're trying to do more with less, and there's more attacks than ever. The attack surface has gotten bigger. So is there an attitude change in the wind?
So I definitely think it starts with education. So AI is kind of the umbrella term for machine learning. You have, unsupervised, supervised, deep learning, et cetera. There's a lot that goes under that. So the security industry has been using machine learning for a few decades. So we've been using supervised machine learning. It's kind of the base of things like web reputation or automated signature generation. The machine knows bad already. It's doing a pattern match, and it generates that information. What we're seeing now is with machine learning, and the benefit of it is again, starts with education. And I think historically, security practitioners, we've been living in a world of definity. Something is either malicious or it's not. It's either you allow it or you block it. When you start to move into what we talk a lot about today in terms of AI and unsupervised machine learning and deep learning, there's a lot of subjectivity there. And so it comes with understanding that, again, the data you put into it, the sensors that are generating that data, that are talking to the ML-based systems or technologies that you deploy that use that within its decision-making, needs to be able to have the right data in order to generate the right signals and the right output. And so it starts with education. It starts with understanding, again, where what questions you're trying to answer. And then for our security practitioners, it's giving them an opportunity to utilize that data, not necessarily exclusively day one, but gradually moving towards that so they have a higher level, of comfort. And then the same thing is, you've got to recognize that when you make decisions based on subjectivity, it gets stronger over time. And so you have to give your security analyst the latitude to model, to adapt, to change to that over time. And I think it's definitely an education aspect. At least that's how I see it.
One of the things you guys were talking about that, frankly, left me behind a little bit, so I'm hoping you'll explain it. But there is this notion of a Woot cloud and some hypertext capabilities. How does that play into this whole thing? I hear the phrase Woot cloud, and I'm like, that must be a bar in Vegas or something. But walk me through what this is.
Well, WooCloud is a great company. They're a security startup here in Silicon Valley. They're focused on utilizing a deep learning engine to identify devices that appear on the network that you may not be aware of. Their hyper context engine is a deep learning engine, as I mentioned, and it is great at identifying any sort of changes that occur. The benefit is that it's agentless. And so it doesn't require administrators to put an agent on every device. That's not possible, right? And if we think back on the types of breaches that have occurred over the years, it's not the devices that had endpoints on them, agents. It's the devices that didn't. It's the devices that didn't get identified or that couldn't be upgraded just based on the type of technology it was, whether it's a medical device or a point of sale device. And so WooCloud's hypercontext engine gives you the ability to identify those in real time and also segment those devices on a different network, change its permissions, and really using the microsegmentation capabilities, isolate it as well. So it's a way of gaining broader visibility, seeing your overall risk, and then taking explicit action. And so we were very excited to integrate their technology with our SRX firewalls, our ATP cloud, and our Mist cloud. So we're really able now to answer the question for our customers, who and what is on the network.
All right. So what are your customers telling you is their number one priority? I know you guys did some surveys recently, but when you looked at that, what leaps out at you as kind of the number one action item that customers are asking you to focus on?
I think it's to have better visibility through a threat-aware network. We did a blind survey a few weeks back that covered over 1,000 IT and security professionals globally. And 97% of them came back with saying, we need a threat-aware network. We need more visibility and have real-time detection and response built in, not just to security, but to the networking infrastructure as well. So it was great validation for us that we're on the right track with connected security, and we'll continue to do so.
All right, great. Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and back to you guys in the studio.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey, that's great stuff, Mike. 2 for the price of 1 for you all out there. We don't get enough of Mike, so it's good to have 2 videos of him. That's going to wrap it for today's show. I hope you didn't mind our little fun with the flies. It was just too funny not to do it here. And I always wanted to be a Saturday Night Live performer. But anyway, have a great day. We will see you Thursday with some fresh content around DevOps and cloud native, cybersecurity, digital cloud transformation. Until then, this is Alan Schimmel. Stay safe, stay well, stay strong, tech strong. Bye-bye.